And good evening. Today is September the 17th. Right now it is 7:35, and I'm calling to order this evening's meeting of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. For the benefit of those who have not participated in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. The Secretary will read the legal notice of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. The applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. First, there'll be clarifying questions from the commissioners, and then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Next, we'll ask those who want to support the application to come forward. Second, we'll ask those opposing the application to come forward. As this is a public meeting and must be recorded, it will be necessary for speakers to identify themselves by speaking their name and address before addressing the commission. The applicant will then be free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission and has the right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling Planning and Zoning Office at 203-453-8039 after 9 a.m. Seated tonight are the following members of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. We have Tom Cost, I'm Rich Meyer, Walter Corbiere, Richard Wallace, Ray Bauer, Frank DeAndrea, Josh Hirschman, and Phil Johnson is an alternate tonight. He cannot vote, but he will be participating in discussion. We have George Corral, Reggie Reed, Katie Arbuckle, and Shannon Gale is running our cameras for us. Mr. Secretary, please read the notice.
Legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on September 17, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, Monunketuck Room, 2nd floor, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, for the following purposes. Number 1, Joseph DiPiazza, 25 Waterside Drive, Map 8, Lot 61, Zone R2. After the fact, Coastal Area Management Site Plan Zone Steps, Section 273-91. Number 2, Sunset Creek Development, 353 Stepstone Hill Road, Map 92, Lot 15, Zone R4 and R5. Special Permit Accessory Apartment in an Accessory Structure, Section 273-19, and Office in an Accessory Structure, Section 273-38A. Number 3, amend Section 273-194. 1941, correct? 194I, TS2 maximum building size, and 273-49I, residential units in industrial zones. Number 4, DDR Guilford, 1919 Boston Post Road, map 79, lot 34, 35, 36A, zone SCW, special permit and site plan for restaurant with drive-through service, section 273-204A5, and outdoor seating, section 273-75Q1A. Number 5, Sullivan Farm North, LLC, 2945 Boston Post Road, map 83, lot 5A, zone TS2, two-lot subdivision. Number 6, amend section 273-206, sign requirements, SCW zone. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the Office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 25th day of August, 2014, Richard Meyer, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. All right, can I get a motion to open the public hearing on Mr. DiPiazza?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
All right.
Mr. DiPiazza. When are we doing
Okay, this is the mechanical, electrical preliminaries are okay. Stone stairs. We learn more about them. There are stairs that are built from the lawn, from my house down to the beach. Pictures will say much more. I've been living at this house at 25 Waterside Drive since the late 70s. Okay. Here we go. The picture is, I'll tell you a lot, the beach is not Hammonasset, so there's a good deal of dead seaweed there, and there's sand underneath and so on. These are the stairs. This is the seawall. It's really a rather ominous and impressive seawall with these many boulders. The original owner of the house and builder of the house got the house and had to protect it after he learned that the house, the earlier house on the property was destroyed in a hurricane in 1938. And his approach to it was to raise the land by means of all of these boulders. And these boulders here in front on the seawall. Now, nobody wants to climb down these boulders, or should, to get to the beach. That would be fairly dangerous, or at least it's quite awkward, and certainly you wouldn't want your mother or grandmother to attempt that little trek. Okay. There were wooden steps down to the beach when I got the house, and they were there for years. They were destroyed in a hurricane or washed away. And my response some years after that was not to get stuck with steps that could be washed away again. So these are the answer, stone steps. We'll get a better look at them as we go on. So one thing stone steps will do is protect people against accidents if they were to attempt to go down the boulders. But also they obviously protect against storms and hurricanes. These steps have gone through a few hurricanes. Certainly they weren't upset by Sandy. Yet there was water in the lawn of the adjacent property over here. Yet these steps do improve the seawall and did help in some measure the adjacent property, blocking the water for some time. So and the other thing we can note is that they're not just hurricanes that you can predict, but on the water sometimes there are sudden storms. Someone like me who's been around on this cove and that leads into Long Island. Some people call it Joshua Cove, some people call it Great Harbor Cove. Know that there can be little tornadoes type of storms, and actually one of them hit my house once. If you had wooden steps, you really couldn't get them out of the water. If they were, so to speak, portable steps, you couldn't get them out quickly enough, but they'd probably be destroyed. And Okay.
Can I ask you a question, sir? Just in relation to the picture? Where the stones are those steps right there?
Do you want the earlier one?
Yes. This is the way it is now.
Yes.
And so I guess the next picture, you answer the question, is going to be what was there before.
No, this is the same
Okay,
stone
so
step.
before these steps, there was a wooden set of steps there.
There were wooden steps,
Okay,
yes.
all right. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Well, there was a time when there was no steps. Well, you'll see that there's a neighbor that testifies about the wooden steps being there. Okay, 10 years ago, there was just wooden steps or I'm not quite sure. Well, I know when I bought the house in 77, there were wooden steps and they were there for decades. They came to the house in 77, but they were washed out to sea in one of the many hurricanes. That's one of the problems of living underwater. So when they were washed away, after a few years, I just, again, started putting in something that would stay. And I think I even glanced at some of the neighbors that had stone steps. And as for a permit, that thought never crossed my mind. Not because I don't want to get it, but then because I didn't see it as, again, it didn't cross my mind. Because to me, I'm working with the stones that are already here, and I'm putting in steps to replace the wooden steps. If there was any thought that would have crossed my mind, I would have looked upon this as a grandfathering situation, and that's that. That would have been my thinking then. But I was reminded many weeks ago or a few months ago that a permit apparently is necessary. I didn't even know there was an environmental officer there. Well, I did know that there was one, but not, I don't think at the time these steps were built. In any case, I would say these steps are not a pollution problem. They're not destroying anything like the boulders or the sand or whatever. And I made every attempt to make use of the seawall itself to avoid the sand as much as possible. Again, this is a letter from an adjacent neighbor, one of the people that has a house bordering mine. The neighbor just to the south. Maybe I should try to, if I'm successful here with my fingers. Where is it? Yep, okay. I didn't get them all down at the same time. I never had dexterous fingers. Okay. Here's the email from my neighbor, David Marks, and he happens to be president. You have to follow my little cursor. It's an environment company in North Haven. And North Haven, there we are. And he sent me the email after we talked. And okay. Good. All right. I don't know if that's fair enough for most people. It's a challenge for me. What should I read to you? Well, there's the letterhead, and there's the date, September 15th. He's addressing my property. Subject is the stone stairs that reach the beach. To whom it may concern, as taxpayers and neighbors to the south. His house is 31 Waterside Drive. I have no objection in reference to the stairs, which are, maybe I read a lot of those things here, which are cement and stone and entering the beach on 25 Waterside Drive. It is my, he says relocation, but he really means recollection. We all have funny ways in which words. It is my recollection that there once was wooden stairs in the same area. Most neighbors in the area, and here's something he enlightened me about. I had seen some stone steps. He says most, because he's in a position to look farther south along our road or our coast. Most neighbors in the area have access to the water via stone and or cement steps. Yeah, there's no neighbor with strictly cement steps. And so that's it. You can't, well, he didn't paste any signatures. Let me get the right. There you go. And get that. Yeah. So that is much better than the slide I attempted. Okay, the value of the stone steps, there's many of them, a path through sand, more or less hurricane proof. This is sort of an overview or whatever. Neighbors have it. And there's another testimonial that's important. I remember to make that point shortly. But okay, stops accidents. People are not going to want to walk over the trees rollers. Strengthens the seawall, helps neighbors further vary against storms, northeasters, little tornadoes, hurricanes. Those steps are going nowhere. They treated Sandy. I think there is one of beauty. I like the different color stones that are there. But I got to really stress that here's the meat of them. Over here, you speak, you whoa, look at that. One. Okay, light fingers. There we go. These boulders that are underneath it. All right. This is a better side to see them. Again, I built this within and on top of the boulders that are there. And that gives it strength, and that also keeps it from doing something that uses up a lot of sand. Okay. It's better than wood. Some probably treated wood we use, and that's got its own problems. Some of it is toxic, and it's better than detached stairs, as I find that stones that come and rip those away. Some storms are not going to rip this away. And it even stops erosion and so on. Okay. That's the last step. You can see my foot there. Those other cabinets that were banister, we noted there were banisters on both sides. I try to provide safety situation if I could. So Sandy didn't wash this thing away, and I think it's going to be washed away in the future. And here's finally a much better look at the strength of the stairs. Here are a few steps, 1, 2, 3, and here are those boulders underneath. Here, back, and one over here, one over here. The steps are built on top of them or within them. And they use the strength of the seawall. And again, the neighbor's house is behind her. So now, if the storm is not that bad, they will flood. Otherwise, the water will hit her lawn more readily. Somebody could ask me a question. But there was another testimonial. I don't know if his name is Kevin McGee, who's the environmental officer.
Yeah, we have that. Yeah, I could read this into the record. It was dated September 15th, 2014, and to Guilford Planning and Zoning from Kevin McGee, the environmental planner. This application is for the after-the-fact construction of stone steps and a stone seawall from the lawn to the beach. The steps are constructed in a FEMA flood zone. This work has a slight potential to degrade the natural erosion patterns and disposition sediment on the upper portion of the beach. Reggie, how was this sort of triggered? Because these stairs have been here for quite a while, right? It seems like.
Well, I don't think so.
Okay, no.
The Director of Health and I were inspecting the property, and I happened to notice that there were steps there. And I remembered from being at the property many times in the past that there were not steps, and so did the Director of Health. Because we looked at them and said, wow, these are pretty new, because he used to have to jump down the rocks to get to the beach. So I don't know when they were built, but I do have aerial photographs that do not show the steps in 2005.
Okay. And
It was just a seawall then.
were there any letters from neighbors or anything?
No,
No.
no.
Are there any
Neighbors aren't really concerned about
Okay.
that.
Does staff have any concerns about how the steps were constructed?
No,
Are there any recommendations that would have been made had they been made, had the application come in before the fact?
no, they look good and solid. They look good and sturdy. John Goucher has looked at the application, he's looked at the photographs, and of course Kevin McGee has gone down and looked at them, and we've decided that there's certainly not an erosion control structure. In other words, they're not going to perform a function such as a jetty, so they're fine. It was just that they were built without a permit, and now we need to permit them.
And would this have received a permit if it came originally?
Yeah, if he had come to the office and said, I'm going to build some steps, do I need a building permit or something? We would have said, you have to go to planning and zoning because you would need a coastal site plan application.
So this is just bypassing the coastal site plan application?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't know he needed one.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, do you wanna
The
ask any
application
questions?
has been filled out.
Yes. Yeah.
You have copies, I believe.
Any other questions?
No.
Frank?
To close?
None for me.
I think we're good.
The story
I
now.
submitted
Okay.
7 copies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Move to close.
Do you wanna ask the
I think we
public?
need to have questions and
Oh.
for or against from the
Oh,
public.
yes, you're right. Thanks, Ray.
No problem.
Or priceless, I love you. Okay, so, as we read all the time,
But there were wooden, the neighbor testifies to the wooden steps, and plenty of these, and again, the neighbor testifies that there will be plenty of stone steps down the road. I have now seen 3 of them when I go down the road. And look, and these were there. I want to say before the 2005 date that was cited, there was a number of years when there was nothing there. That's because I didn't think if I was going to put wood back in, I was going to put something better, and I didn't think of what to do. But I hit upon this idea, so to speak, growing the stone steps out of the boulders, if you will. And that's what I did. And again, since they, to me, it wasn't the house that I was working on, it was just working with stones. And then probably at that time, I didn't even know there was an environment officer in Guilford.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Any comments for? Comments against? All right. So we have a motion. Thanks, Ray. We have a motion to close this. Do we have a second?
Move to close public hearing.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Nice presentation. Okay. Can I have a motion to open item number 2?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is Sullivan Farm, 2945 Weston Post Road, map 83.5A, Zone CS2, 2-lot subdivision. Who is going to present for us?
Didn't we see this? This is exciting. I don't remember what it's. This is, yeah, it was just not restricted.
No map.
You don't have it?
That's okay. No, it's just, I studied yours. I got it.
That's just a subdivision. I love that story.
I didn't know. Yeah, there is, yeah, well, yeah, right, right by that hotel, La Quinta. So, it looks like it's Guilford, Brantford border. Right here, Guilford, Brantford.
Okay, I know, that's the 22 cutoff?
Yep. Is that that yellow house? Right. You know that one that's been for sale for quite a while now?
Here's the turn off. It goes up to North Brantford, so it's right there. Okay, so that.
Oh, I mean,
This is got a bathtub there.
this is just like on the
Good evening. Eric Anderson, Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates, 1054 Boston Post Road here in Guilford. Assisting me this evening is my son Todd. We are here for the Sullivan Farm North property, the Sullivan family. This is property that at one time was part of the newer apple orchard to the west end of town, on the north side of Boston Post Road. It's 2955. We are here for a one-lot subdivision in that parcel A, the part that has the house and barn, and the area that is currently being used as a produce stand was the first cut of this piece of property. So this is the second cut, and it is 4.16 acres. It has more than adequate frontage on the Boston Post Road. It's in the PS2 district. So the 4 acres is well over the zone size requirement. We have an area that is part of 60 feet wide, that's part of the rear land, the remaining land of Sullivan that is left so that there will be access to that land for future development. This property currently has a house and a large concrete building on it, which will be removed when the rest of the property, when this lot is developed. We have been to the Wetlands Board and received the wetlands approval from one little corner of the wetlands up in this area here, primarily on the Seskin property. We show where the 100-foot review line is, and there also is a letter from the Wetlands Board stating that they're referring this positively to your board for approval. We have done tests on the property, and Dennis Johnson has a letter in the file stating that it was tested, and that in the future, when someone does go to build on here, there will have to be, of course, engineered site plan, engineered septic system, that sort of thing. So we erected the sign, we notified the adjoining neighbors. It's quite straightforward, so we look for your approval.
The letter, I can read it in. It is from the New Haven County Farm Bureau to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated today, September 17th. Dear Commissioners, on September 16, 2014, the Board of Directors of New Haven County Farm Bureau voted unanimously to send a letter to the Town of Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission in support of Tractor Supply. We are in support of both the required subdivision of the property and the zoning regulation amendment to allow for outdoor storage. Approval of the outdoor storage of products is particularly critical to their business model in order to maintain an adequate stock of bulky items, such as fencing, gate panels, and livestock feeders that do not require indoor protection. New Haven County Farm Bureau represents over 1,000 members, of which there are 85 who live in the town of Guilford. There is an additional 120 members in the adjacent towns of Branford, North Branford, and Madison. One of the most challenging aspects of farming in New Haven County, and particularly along the shoreline, is a lack of agriculture suppliers. Farmers often travel an hour or more to purchase livestock feed, tools, repair parts for equipment, and other necessary supplies. The products that Tractor Supply carries not only serve the needs of full and part-time farmers, but also those of the average consumer, including pet food, bird seed, lawn and garden supplies, and clothing. With no other Tractor Supply located in New Haven County, we strongly support the one proposed to be built in Guilford. Sincerely, Tim Perry, President.
I also received a letter on my personal email address. I forwarded it to Planning and Zoning, but I knew they wouldn't have an opportunity to get it to us tonight, so I have it here now. I'm going to read it into the record. It's from Frank Farrow, and it says, since I'm unable to attend tonight's public hearing regarding the Sullivan Farm subdivision, please enter the following into the public comment record on my behalf. I feel Tractor Supply will add some positive conveniences to the agricultural community of Guilford and surrounding towns. I have no objection to the proposed lot subdivision, including the building and fenced outdoor sales area shown in alternate site plan 3, which is distributed to the Route 1 West Committee last evening. I think it's imperative, however, that Tractor Supply landscape a significant width of the property that borders Route 1 West or is visible from Route 1 West with a forest canopy to maintain the forested and agricultural appeal of the western end of the gateway to Guilford. The design review company should insist upon it. I think he means design review committee. Visitors from the west, south, north use this gateway from I-95 exit 56 to enter the historic center and shoreline of Guilford and may continue their journey on Route 1 to enjoy similar pleasures of shoreline downs to the east. That forested agricultural appearance of Route 1 West begins with the transition from the busy commercial town store west and south into a town whose colonial character they only occasionally experience. The forested landscape must be maintained. Forest buffer fits the agricultural appeal of the Tractor Supply Company, its products and services. Frank Farrow, 159 Granite Road, Guilford.
And there's a letter from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, to Planning and Zoning, dated today. Soil tests conducted on the applicant's proposed lot on July 22nd, 2014 revealed suitable conditions with the presence of an elevated water table. Based upon soil test results and existing site conditions, future development of this site will require submission of an engineered design septic system plan.
There's also a letter in the file from, I guess, the Wetlands Commission. And it just states, Dear Sullivan Farm North LLC, as of September 6, 2014 walk meeting of the Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission took the following action. Referred favorably The Inland Wetlands Commission refers favorably to the Planning and Zoning Commission the subdivision application of Sullivan Farm LLC, Sullivan Farm North LLC, as shown on Inland Wetlands Boundary Clarification Map 83 Parcel B, property of Sullivan Farm North LLC, 22945 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut, dated 7/13/14. Resolved that the inland wetland boundary as shown on map titled Inland Wetland Boundary Clarification Map 83 Parcel B, property of Sullivan Farm North LLC, 2945 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut, dated 7/30/14, substantially correct.
Mr. Chairman, could I just clarify for the record, we are here for the one-lot subdivision, whereas the letters regarding Tractor Supply are very nice letters. They, I think, are probably more appropriate for a future application that would be made on this property if you approve it.
Points well taken, sir. Thank you. Any other questions?
Reg and George, this is a conforming lot then, right? The
Yes.
regulations for TS2? So
Yes.
that pretty much ends the discussion.
And now, Lot A will also be affected by this subdivision, in the sense that right now it's a single lot that's about 35 acres. Correct?
Parcel A is the
Parcel.
Parcel A is the parcel next door that contains the house and the barn. That is, I think, 2 to 3 acres. The house plus the current produce stand, plus the federal house, plus the long white barn. All the land in the back is future development. That's just other land up that has not been designated as a building lot or as a parcel A or B is yet.
Right.
For future development.
So we've zoned 35 acres as TS2 up to this point, and this parcel is a total of 4 point. I mean, how big is this parcel
It's
altogether?
4.16 of that 35.
And then everything else is a single parcel, or parcel A and parcel B are the only?
These are the two. Parcel A is a first cut. They were like first cut. Because this is the second cut, it's required to be a subdivision lot. Now, if the rest of the property is not developed as one parcel, it could be developed in 2 lots or 4 lots. It's a future parcel.
And I know you know this, but I know most of the board is aware of this, but this easement that runs up the west side of parcel B, are we actually creating the easement that's shown here in any way this evening? Does it already exist?
This 60-foot strip of land is part of the remainder of the property, part of the what's remaining of the 35 acres. The reason that this is an easement is that people who are looking to purchase this would like to have the right to come in and use that as access to the property, possibly before we put in a road back here. So this is an easement for benefit of parcel B on other land that still belongs to the Sullivans.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. No more questions? No more questions? Okay.
Could I say something, please? Do I have to stand up?
Tell us your name and address.
Elsa Green. I sit with the West End Planning Committee, and I saw this last night, and I drove to Old Saybrook to see how it sits in Old Saybrook. First of all, it sits down the industrial area where they all have all their car lots, and it's all out away from the main area that we consider Old Saybrook. And they've situated it sideways so that you're not looking at a parking lot when you drive past it, you're looking at a lawn. this is what we were thinking when we first started the idea of a gateway into Guilford. That's the first property. And the first property will have, I took photographs of a parking lot, a chain link fence full of equipment. And it just sort of unraveled all the things that I think we were thinking about when we were talking about a gateway into Guilford. I know it's agricultural equipment, but it's a really imposing building, and the way it's set up, situated so that all of that is laid out on Route 1 as you come in, is maybe, as Frank had mentioned, is there a way to figure out how to not see parking lot and chain link fence?
There again, we're, points well taken, but we are getting way ahead in that there is currently no proposal for this property. No one has purchased this lot. I don't know if there's any kind of contract or anything like that. But what they're doing, where they're doing it, that is still all going to be part of the whole planning process. That is, and really, the cutting of this one lot, whether Tractor Supply people come in or someone else comes in, this will be a lot in itself. So that all of the future work that has to be done still is in the planning stages. So your points can be very well taken and can be to the planning committee, the planning and zoning commission for the next phase of what actually does get done. Did I?
No, that's correct. And just to condense that, right now all we're talking about is carving out a little piece of land. Whatever that becomes down the road, we're not dealing with that right now. Right now we're just subdividing. Okay. Any other questions? Any comments for or against? Last chance. Yes. Yes.
Monica Pantani. I bought this land on the side of North Branford. My land hits Moore's Orchard, Sullivan's land. And many years ago, I talked to Don Sullivan about that, and he was quite adamant. If anyone knew Don, he was always quite adamant. But he said eventually that whole orchard area on that side of Route 1 will be developed. Because I asked him, because as I had bought his land, anybody building on the hill will look straight down into my property. And I said, could I ask you right then if I could buy that property? And he said, no way. I don't do special favors for anybody. You first come, first served basis. And that. But as for, as I took it, when I received it, this notification, I took it that all you want is the subdivision. You don't have anybody in there doing anything to disturb Guilford. I realize Guilford, I'm sorry, but I realize that you are. I was born in a house that was built in 1115. That's why I think to myself, you're not living in an old age. So I just figured that everything pertains to the beginning of Route 1 going in. If you really expect me to believe that you're interested in how Route 1 looks, you should look to the yellow house that's on the left-hand side as you come in on Route 1. It's falling to bits. It's an eyesore. If you look on the other side, you've got 100 acres for sale. I mean, somebody's going to come in. Obviously, Guilford doesn't look to have any tax property that will abate the taxpayer themselves with having some kind of break and keep on upping the taxes of the taxpayer instead of trying to get some business somewhere. And I always thought that this end, the west end, I believe, should be the sort of the commercial end of your town. I don't live in Guilford, so I don't know. North Branford is the same. They are, I mean, I've got 5 acres of business land over there, and they're giving me a hell of a hard time on Route 139. You don't need it, obviously. I mean, taxation without representation is revolution. So I don't know, I'm all for that. I'm all for the person who would want to buy and put something in there to alleviate the taxes of anybody, of any town. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a great idea. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. This is good. Anyone else? Last chance. Can I have a motion to close this part of the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, next up. It's Sunset Creek Development, 353 Stepstone Hill Road, map 92. Lot 15, zone R4, R5, special permit accessory apartment and accessory structure, section 273-19, and office in an accessory structure, 273-38A. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jim Goodrich. I live at 1 DeCarroll Lane in Guilford. I'm one half of the of Sunset Creek Development. My partner is Alan Jacobs. And the property in question was known as the Cozy property, located between Nut Plains Road and Stepstone Hill and Little Meadow Road on the north side. We purchased this property approximately 2 months ago, and we're in the planning stage for it a number of months before that. The house in question that we're talking about tonight, at the time of development, when we were dealing with the engineer, I personally thought this was a house that had no merit, it couldn't be torn down, that was just in the way, and we were going to build a house on that lot. It came to my attention later on, before we came here for planning and zoning approval, but after we had gotten into the process, that this was actually a historic building, and that obviously presented some problems and some opportunities. I had never actually even been in this building until we closed on the property, which was approximately 30 days after approval, and I went in, on my approval, I should mention, and I think you have a copy of it, it shows that the building is to be demolished. I went in the building, and someone had told me that it had been a schoolhouse at one time, and I went in and I was really pleasantly surprised because, as you can see, on the inside, this wall was added after a while, but it has a curved ceiling. It's all plaster lath construction. It's actually in pretty good condition. It had been used as an apartment for maybe 70 years or so. But so I talked with Joel Elander to get some more information about this, and I talked to Carl Belstrassi to get some information. And Joel came out, and I've had some conversations with him. It turns out that this building was built in 1833, and it was located in another parcel on Nut Plains Road. And it was eventually moved several times, where it ended up on this property in 1905. And it was used as an active schoolhouse until 1930, I think it's 31. And then after that, it was turned into an apartment, used as an apartment. Well, obviously, we didn't want to get rid of it. We looked into moving the structure and have done an examination of it, and it's a little bit fragile underneath, and there are old sills there. The chimney is leaning off. Moving it wasn't really an option, so it comes back down to demolishing it or keeping it. And so obviously we want to keep it. It's a historical building. I have, in Joel's book, Treasury of Guilford Places, he talks about it, and it says, the little dwelling at the southwest corner of Nut Plains Road and North Madison Road is the surviving Nut Plains District Schoolhouse dating to the year 1833. It stands in its third location, having originally stood at the ledge rock at 831 Nut Plains Road. When the population of Nut Plains became too large for one school, two districts were formed in 1851, north and south, each with its own schoolhouse. At this time, the old schoolhouse was moved to the intersection, but on the north side of the road, to serve the new North District. Dampness in the cellar caused so much structural damage that the schoolhouse was moved to a drier site in its present location. Eventually, the Little Hall of Learning served both districts again. However, by 1931, realization of the limitations of the one-room school as an educational institution prompted the town to permanently close the Left Plains School. So what we want to do now is we want to leave it, we want to fix it up. It obviously needs work on the outside, it needs a new roof, it needs to be painted, it needs to be cleaned up, and then used as an apartment or as an office. And if it were used as an office, and I don't have control over it, but if it were used as an office, it would be kind of nice to turn it back into sort of a schoolhouse theme. Take out the wall in the middle, and you can't see it, but there's a kitchen and bathroom over here, and close them off. And with the wall out, then you would see the whole curved ceiling all the way through, which is actually in really good condition. The building has its own septic system, and it has its own dug well. The dug well is obviously a hand-laid up well. It's right next to the house. It's about 30 or, I don't know how deep, but it's probably 30 or 40 feet deep. It's very deep. And directly next to the house, we put a cap on it because it had a wood cover on it. Has its own functioning septic system right now. Part of my subdivision approval is going to require putting city water up Left Plains Road. So one of the considerations was that using the dug well is not always advantageous and probably less than 75 feet from the existing septic system. So that we could hook this up to city water and use a septic system that's there now. So it is a viable, functional building. I mean, there are some repairs, as I said, the chimney's going to need some repair, but we'd like to keep it. It's worth keeping. It's another part of Guilford's history, and one that really we shouldn't do is lose. I was going to tear it down. I admit it. But after I looked into it and found out about it, I was completely convinced. And Joel was out there on Saturday along with some other people, and I believe they were convinced as well. So it's a nice building.
Can I clarify a couple things? One is this, the office, this would be a home office for whoever lives on the property in the new home once that's eventually built. It wouldn't be an office that could be rented to anyone. And similarly, it would be an accessory apartment in a detached accessory building, accessory to the new home that's eventually built there. And it would have to meet all the requirements of the accessory apartment regulations. And the owner of the property would have to either live in this building or the main building.
Good. I've seen the building. I've actually been there on the wetlands walk, and it's it looks.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough, but
it can be nice.
Exactly, and that's kind of what we're hoping for.
But you probably didn't see the inside.
No, absolutely not. And we're kind of hoping that as we stumble across these historic buildings that we can save them. So I think that's great. Questions? Frank? No? Fine.
Is it important that we impose this condition of city water for Dennis?
I think that's his recommendation.
And
Do you have any?
You have a memo from him?
There's a letter here. Yeah, it's dated September 16, 2014. Soil test conducted on the applicant's proposed lot on July 19th, I think it's 2014, revealed suitable condition for construction of a septic system to serve the proposed apartment or office building. Based upon soil test results and site plan review, it is recommended that the applicant's proposed use be approved with the following condition. 1, prior to occupancy of the new apartment or office, a septic system serving the building shall be upgraded to current health code standards, and the building shall be connected to the public water supply. You're okay with that, right? If that was a condition?
I hadn't read that when I talked to Dennis this morning, and I said to him, because he was talking about the septic, I said, well, what if we put in city water? I didn't know that was in the law.
Okay, but
I did read the letter.
but you would be okay with that if it was a condition of...
I think you have to do it.
Okay, fair enough.
The flip side, Kevin McGee has a letter in here.
What do you got?
The applicant dated September 16th, yesterday, from Kevin McGee. The applicant is looking to convert the existing residence on the property to an accessory apartment/office. This building was noted on the subdivision plans to be removed in the Wetlands Commission meeting. At the Wetlands Commission meeting of May 14, 2014, Mike Harkins of Harkins Engineering indicated that the existing septic system for the building was located too close to the wetland. My review of the septic plans for the property revealed that the dry well for the septic system is located within a couple of feet from the wetlands. Talking to Dennis Johnson, Health Director, it is my understanding that due to the change in use of this building, a new septic system would would need to be installed since the corner of the property is located within wetlands purview area. A permit from inland wetlands would be required for installation of a code-complying septic system. Due to the historic nature of the building, as for being a former schoolhouse and the constraints of installing a code-complying septic system, I would encourage the applicant to contact the historical societies to see if the building could be moved to one of their properties for a long-term preservation,
Which we know is not going to work.
which is going to stay where it is.
Yeah, that's really wet soil over there too.
Yeah, so my,
Right where that house is, it's not too bad.
Just 5 feet over there where you. it's
Correct.
sinking
Not
in
far
the-
from there, it's not so great. But right there, and where the septic system is, that was some of the best soil in the entire subdivision,
Yeah.
which is good.
so are we actually doing a change of use because we're doing from residential to
I don't know if
office?
it's change use, it's home office.
It's
a home office.
He's asking for a special permit to be able to utilize the building for two things: an office or an accessory apartment.
Which is currently an accessory, or it's currently an apartment. So do we,
Well,
but so is it
has
change
been
of
rented out as an apartment, but currently it's the only
Not legally,
house on
then.
the lot.
use? Right.
So it's a primary residence on the lot.
So then it is a change of use for the office then, not
But
the, or no?
when the house gets built, this accessory building can, with a special permit from the Planning and Zoning Commission, can be used as a home office for the occupant of the house or an accessory apartment.
They're going to build another building there, so this will become an accessory structure, and in order to put an apartment or a home office in it, you need to get a special permit. So what they're asking for here is a grant to turn this accessory structure, once the other structure is built, into either an office or an accessory apartment. And that is permitted by special permit, if it's granted.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments, for or against? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
I have a motion to open number 4, DDR Guilford.
So moved.
Second.
This is DDR Guilford, 1919 Boston Post Road, map 79, lot 34, 35, 36A, zone SCW. Special permit and site plan for restaurant drive-through service, section 273-204-5, and outdoor seating, section 273-75Q, 1A. Attorney Neff, how are you, sir?
Evening, Mr. Chairman, how are you?
Thank you.
As you know, my name is John Nuff, 147 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut, on behalf of DDR Guilford LLC. There's 2 special permit applications before you. One is for a drive-through restaurant, and the other is for outdoor seating with a restaurant on property that abuts a residential zone. We have sent the letters in accordance with your regulations. We have also posted the sign in accordance with your regulations, and photos of the sign, and we have already sent to Katie the certified letter of receipts, so all that is already in the record. Just by way of background, when our site plan was approved back in 2008, and when it was more recently approved in July this past year, we've always contemplated having a restaurant on the site. We didn't know exactly where the restaurant was going to be, but there's always been a restaurant contemplated. And I think Chris is getting out the boards and that I can walk you through. But you have sort of an anomaly in your regulations in terms of the outdoor seating, because we have always also had outdoor seating on our site plans back in 2008 and more recently in July this past year, but that outdoor seating was never directly related to a restaurant. So there's really nothing different than you haven't already seen several years ago and several months ago, with the exception of the drive-through. So just to quickly orient you to the sort of the vocabulary we use. The building to the left of the main driveway we call the out parcel building, and then the rest of the buildings are building A, B, and C. So as you know, the out parcel building has been on our plan since 2008 from our original approval. And so this is one potential location for the restaurants. And if the restaurant is in this location, you can have both outdoor seating and the drive-through. And I'll take you through how the drive-through would work in a moment. It is also possible that we could have a restaurant in Building A, and Building A also has already provided for outdoor seating there as well. If there's a restaurant in Building A, there obviously won't be a drive-through. The only location on the site that a drive-through can be located is in the out parcel building. So just for clarity purposes. In terms of the drive-through, this is a blow-up. And can everyone see this okay? I mean, you want me to move a little closer?
I think maybe they.
Sorry?
I think maybe they can't see right now.
Let me stand over here. So I know there's some neighbors who are here who might have an interest, and so they can take a look as well. So this is the out parcel building in blow-up. You can see here depicted is, and we went through design review with the pavement patterns and all that. This is where the outdoor seating would be located. We're depicting 4 tables, 16 seats. Could that be expanded a little bit? Perhaps. But it's really intended as an amenity. In terms of the drive-through window, the pickup window, I'll go backwards. The pickup window is at the southern portion of the building. The drive-through line will wrap around. There will be an ordering station as you approach the pickup window, and then there's sufficient queuing back along the site. So there's room for about 10 or 11 cars in the queue. This is, if the restaurant goes in this location, it's going to be a casual sit-down restaurant. And in fact, we were before Route 1 West last night because I know the commission had asked us to stop by and tell them what we were doing. And by the way, they also had no objection to our proposal. But a casual sit-down restaurant can more easily be thought of in terms of what it's not. It's not a fast food restaurant. It's not a fine dining, white tablecloth type of restaurant. It's in that in-between area. So the drive-through would be more of a convenience. It is a type of restaurant that doesn't derive a large percentage of its sales through the drive-through. It's, as I said, mainly a convenience for other people who may be shopping at the center and then decide to pick something up and bring it home. Because as you'll see, let me go back to the original. Oh, actually, this will work here. It's not the type of restaurant where it's going to be a particularly convenient place to stop and run in and grab a cup of coffee and get back on the road, because as you'll see, you have to enter up the long access drive, make a left toward the site, get into queue, come back around, exit the site, and get back onto Route 1. It's not the prototypical fast food restaurant that you see with McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or any of those others where the drive-through is located just a short bit away from a traffic light. So that's the operation of the drive-through. And as I mentioned, the only place where a drive-through could be located is with the out parcel building. And relevant to both the outdoor seating and the drive-through is that the closest residential neighbor is approximately 400 feet away. So I don't think a drive-through would have any way of impacting any neighbors, but to the extent that there was some sort of element to it that could, we're quite a distance away from any of our residential neighbors. So that's the drive-through aspect of the special permit application. In terms of the outdoor seating, as I noted, there is outdoor seating that has already been depicted on the approved site plan from back in July, which is adjacent to the out parcel building. There's also outdoor seating that's already been depicted on the approved site plan adjacent to Small Shop A. At some point in the future, is there a possibility that another restaurant could come in somewhere along this line of shops? It's possible. Right now, we're only proposing one restaurant, but we would ask that because of where this property sits in relation to any residential abutters, that it sort of be a blanket special permit, so that in 5 years, should another restaurant want to come and locate in building B, there wouldn't be any need to come back before the commission and get another approval for outdoor dining. So those are the two applications. I think they're about as straightforward as you can imagine. Elements of this have already been approved, particularly the outdoor seating aspect. The drive-through is new, but it's not a type of drive-through that's going to get a lot of use, where you see a lot of fast food restaurants, they derive sometimes up to 70% of their income from their drive-through. We would expect this to be far, far less than that. And I think as you see, just from the depiction of where that drive-through is, as a significant distance or significant driving distance from Route 1, it's not the quick in and out sort of fast food context that you would may have some concerns about. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Could you do it from that side so we can see
Oh, yeah.
where you're pointing? We've got the public here, we can't see.
No, I'm sorry.
Just your back.
That's fine. This is the out parcel building, as I noted. The drive-through would be located, the drive-through pickup window would be located on the south side of the building. So traffic that would want to visit the drive-through would enter off of Route 1, come up the hill, make a left, continue along the site, make a left into the drive-through queuing lane. There's an ordering window here, and you come up to the window, pick up your food, come back out, drive through the drive aisle, back down the main access way, and out. The potential locations for the outdoor dining are in this location on the southeast on the out parcel building, and most likely in this location at the corner of Building A and Building B, and this outdoor seating area, as this one, have always been depicted on the approved site plans.
The hours would be the same, the malls open, or the stores would be open, the restaurant would be open. I mean, there are, why I'm asking is residential property right behind it. Lights would be flashing through the trees into their yards and maybe annoy their children or them. Are you going to build a wall or put trees up to block the lights? You have plans for that. And what are the hours?
Well, we don't have the entire yet, so we don't know specifically what the hours will be. There's going to be lights, across the entire parking area. I don't think there's going to be any extra lights attended to the outdoor seating.
Not car lights driving through the pickup at night?
Could we hold off on the questions until, and we will get back to you, I promise, we'll let you ask all the
I'll ask them. I'm not afraid to talk.
And I'm glad, and I appreciate
We
you
were
being
involved
here.
with this before, so I know well about it.
Okay, good. Counselor, can we ask some questions?
Sure, absolutely.
You prepared?
Can I get, what's your name, sir?
I'll give it when I'm ready to give it.
You've already asked a question, I need your
No,
name,
you told me
please.
not to ask questions, so right now I'm quiet. We'll get help in this if we have to. I'm not worried about it. There's people that will defend us as residents of this town.
Okay, well, let's ask some questions first. I actually have a question, and it goes along with what this gentleman was asking about. 400 feet seems, like a long distance, but at 10 o'clock at night, if there's a speaker outside and someone pulls up and someone says, "Can I get your order?" over that speaker, and some folks are trying to sleep 400 feet away, how late would this be operating? Do you have any idea? Can you answer that now, or you don't know?
Again, we don't have a specific tenant in mind. Part of the plan is to, if it's approved, it will be an additional lure to get a tenant. But I will tell you that the way these speakers work is that they are at a tone of normal conversation. There's not a loudspeaker sort of system where anyone needs to shout. There's no outdoor speakers associated with this. This is a simple speaker that I think we've all have used ourselves. And over the course of that distance, and I think most of the neighbors are far greater than 400 feet away. And maybe Chris can scale the various residential areas out for us. But over the course of 400 feet, that sound will dissipate greatly. I mean, it's a conversational tone.
And as far as, I guess it doesn't make a difference whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a store. There'll still be lighting in the parking lot, no matter what it is.
There will be lights on in the parking lot, probably at least an hour after the stores are closed, because people who are working in those shops, either restocking or closing up for the night, or doing the cash registers, need to get out to their car safely. So
Sure.
There's going to be people leaving the entirety of the sites, after the stores are closed, frankly far away from where the drive-thru is located.
Potentially, we don't know what's going to go in there, but potentially it could operate 24 hours a day.
A restaurant?
Anything. Any of those businesses could operate 24 hours a day.
No, we could restrict that, right?
Well, can we now?
Yes, we could.
As you know, we've been very careful about not identifying tenants, so as not to lead anyone on. But I'd be shocked if there was any of the tenants that we're talking to that would want to be open. Typically, 24-hour operations are an occasional drugstore, that type of use. I'd be very, very surprised if there was 24-hour operation.
So what do you think would be an appropriate time frame for the lights to go off?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get off on a tangent because we're not here before you.
Drive-throughs do tend to operate a little bit later than stores, as I'm sure you know. We were just wondering about.
You know, as I said, this is not fast food. In fact, nor can it be. And
so then it should be a reasonably early time frame.
I would imagine that the drive-through, and again, I'm speculating, would be open no later than 9 or 10 o'clock at night at the latest.
Do you think it would be appropriate for the lights to go off at 11?
If the stores, when you say the lights, are you talking about the entire parking lot, the field of
That is
parking?
a question.
Yeah, that's a safety concern.
Well, the other thing is, we're here talking about a drive-through and an outdoor area. If you're concerned about the lightings in the whole area, the time to have brought that up was at the site plan when it was approved, not now.
Well, this is a special permit, so for us to grant this, if they want to use it, we can.
I don't believe we
put in
can. We've
conditions.
already approved you may be able to do it in that specific area, but you can't go back and tell him how he's going to have the lighting plan that you already approved.
They were not contemplating fast food before tonight.
No, we're still not contemplating fast food.
It's not.
They were not contemplating drive-throughs before tonight. Now they're contemplating drive-throughs.
You've already approved the lighting plan for that area. If you want to.
And we have not already approved drive-throughs.
So let me ask you a question about the
You're missing
stacking.
the point.
Are you, you met all the state requirements and where are the actual, you're going from the order board or you're going from the pickup window for the stackings? I know the state has its minimum car requirements. I just want to make sure that you guys did actually meet that.
Yes, well, I mean, your regulations just require sufficient queuing. As you know, it's not a fast food that's going to have, as you know, McDonald's typically has 2 ordering stations and then a place where you pay and then a place where you pick up your food because their whole thing is super high efficiency because they make so much of their money through the drive-thru. This is not intended to operate that way. These types of restaurants do not, garner the lion's share of their income through the drive-thru. This is more of a convenience function for those who may want to bring their lunch or dinner home or back to their office. So given that type of a restaurant, we have more than sufficient queue.
And the speaker board is on the left side of the
The
building?
speaker board is, yes, I'm calling it on the west side, yes.
Well, because that's the window where you're pointing. It would be up,
Yes.
but it's not in the rear of the building.
No, it's not in the rear of the building. And so the closest residential home is up here, and that's approximately 400 feet away.
How would we differentiate casual dining from fast food in our approval?
Fast food is designed primarily for consumption off premises. It's usually delivered, now I have to be careful because I was going to say usually delivered in a material that's like a bag or, but I mean, here's the way that you can assure yourselves that's not going to be fast food. Because fast food restaurants generate traffic at a far, far higher rate than do these types of restaurants. We don't have our OSTA approval, our Office of State Traffic Administration approval, does not contemplate a fast food restaurant, and our traffic counts are not sufficient to accommodate a fast food restaurant. So if we try to turn that into a McDonald's, we would have to go back to OSTA and amend our certificate. We are not doing that. And as a practical matter, there's no fast food restaurant in the world who would want to be located, up on top of a hill. You have to do a circuitous route in, a circuitous route out. I mean, fast food restaurants want just that, something fast. You get in, you order, you're back on the road. They require light. They want, direct visibility from a major arterial road. None of that's really here. It's going to be sort of up on top of the hill, and you're going to have a bit of a hike to get there.
To one point and one question. I believe we were talking about lighting. I believe that was actually addressed in the original wetlands approval for the whole complex.
You're right, I forgot about that.
And second of all, my question to you, John, is that we may not even have a tenant that needs a drive-through.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, the problem is we don't know who the tenant is, but as you know, we've been working hard, I can't say we, DDR's been working hard to gather the tenants for the site. And they're talking to some who may want a drive-through. Now, it's entirely possible that they'll find the first restaurant, and you can only have one to start, that the first restaurant to sign a lease will be located over here, and the drive-through becomes a non-issue. But, we just want to keep our options open so that we can be as attractive to tenants as we possibly can.
I actually have a question. So you recall that, I obviously am relatively new to the commission, almost 2 years now, but you recall that this whole drive-through special permit for this specific location was done relatively recently.
Right.
And you were actually at the meeting
Yep.
when we did it. And part of the discussion was to sort of, because nothing was going on at that location at the time, right?
Yes.
So part of the discussion was to incentivize movement on that location.
Exactly.
Would you say that, because we included drive-throughs here, it sort of helped incentivize the movement on this project, or not at all?
It certainly helps incentivize getting a restaurant at the location. There's more and more of these type of sit-down casual restaurants that are utilizing a drive-through as a convenience. Again, not heavily reliant upon them, but as we all know, we're spending a lot more time in our car, and for some people it's going to be faster for them to order in their car and take it away from them as opposed to going inside, placing the order, and taking it back out. And obviously that's the case if it's raining, that's going to be a preference for some people.
And in Guilford, I'm pretty aware there really are no other locations where there are drive-throughs.
Understood. And I understand that any that are probably not conforming.
Yeah. And going on to that, I'm just trying to figure out how important it was that we included drive-throughs in this location for continuing on with this project with DDR.
I think it's very important. I think you want a restaurant. It's just a nice amenity. And if it's located at the out parcel, there will be outdoor seating, which I think is another nice amenity. I think the center would be something less than what it should be if there were no restaurant. Because you can easily imagine a scenario of wanting to visit a variety of shops in the middle of the day when it might be convenient to go grab something to eat.
So, can I ask a question? I certainly don't, I understand your desire not to spell out names about who could possibly be here, but just for my own information, when you say casual dining, I'm not sure. For example, I'll just give you an example. Is Chili's a casual dining?
They would be in that definition, yes.
Carrabba's?
Probably, yes. I haven't visited one of those, but probably, yes.
Okay.
Tom, I went on the website. If you just go on their website, you can see all the restaurants they have. There's Panera's, there's Chili's, there's
TGI
Moe's,
Fridays.
Southwest Grill.
TGI Fridays?
I mean, there's
Five Guys.
there's plethora, but that's fast casual.
It's not McDonald's or Burger King, it's not Whitefield's.
I just was trying to get a clarification on what that means.
That would be in that Chili's, that Panera kind of outfit. That's a fast casual, not fast food.
Okay.
Good. More questions? Ray?
Nope, none for me.
Sure.
Positive.
When you last came before us, your architect mentioned that you're already in very close consultation with a lot of possibilities. And several times across the course of that last application, which was just a 10,000 square foot reduction and had very little else of substance in it, you represented to us that you were extremely confident that you wouldn't just be finished with construction by fall of 2015. But under our current approval regime, the one that exists right now, that you'd have a grand opening. And when I was concerned that maybe you might do this project halfway or dump it or something else, you mentioned we will see you at the grand opening in fall of 2015. Did you mean we'll see you at the grand opening in fall of 2015 if you approve a drive-through 2 months from now?
No, I mean, if you're asking me, will this project rise or fall on a drive-through? No, it's not going to rise or fall on a drive-through.
Yeah.
But it is an important component for some of the restaurant tenants that we're talking to. But again, I don't think there's a zoning standard that says you only approve a drive-through if the project will fail without it. You have standards in your regulations that we meet, frankly, for a drive-through, in terms of queuing and width of the lane, and I think in this case, it's, in terms of its location, far away from any residential neighbors, its location, a long driving distance from Route 1, I think the commission can be assured that there's not going to be any negative impacts associated with the drive-through.
And you believe that the traffic inflow and egress from a restaurant would be the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the ITE manual, that's the manual that a traffic engineer has to use in terms of calculating potential traffic impacts. Those numbers subsume drive-throughs in a fast food restaurant because there is no such thing as a fast food restaurant that doesn't have a drive-through. Maybe there's a McDonald's somewhere in the country that doesn't have a drive-through, but nearly all do. They don't even have a standard for this type of restaurant, the drive-through, because it just doesn't generate enough traffic. Either you're going to this restaurant or you're not. Your choice is, am I going to run in to pick up something, or am I going to sit in my car and pick it up that way? It's not as if you're going there exclusively because of the drive-through. It's just a more convenient way to pick up your lunch or dinner.
But the type of restaurant is, as you mentioned, determined to some extent by whether or not a drive-through is permitted in terms of who actually selects this kind of site.
Yeah, and what it does, it broadens the envelope of potential tenants.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Stop? That's it. Any questions from our audience?
Should we read?
Wait.
There's
Sorry.
a memo here. This is to the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission from Chris Wilmer. He is the chair of the Route 1 West Planning Committee. This is Richard. At the Route 1 West Committee meeting last night, which was 9/16, we discussed a special permit request to allow a drive-through restaurant and outdoor seating at Guilford Commons as part of the planned development. The committee was convinced the proposal will have no adverse impact on Route 1 West study area and voted unanimously in favor of the request. Please let me know if you have any questions or need additional information.
Great.
That's the only.
Good. Chris did that. Thanks. We have to thank Chris for that. Now, your turn.
Sandra Wilson, 35 Joan Drive. I'm a butter to the project, so right behind it. Thanks. John, last meeting in July, I believe you said the snow removal, the snow was supposed to come, you were going to push it back behind this building? Is it still going to work with the drive-through there now?
I don't think we identified this specific location as the snow storage area. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, my name is Chris Gagnon, Engineer with BL Companies representing DDR. You're absolutely correct. That is an area which we specified for snow storage. You're obviously not allowed to push the snow into the wetlands. And as a matter of fact, you're not allowed to even store it in the upland review area. So this happens to be an area of a paved area that's out of the upland review area where we can store it. It is outside of the drive-through queuing lane, and the way the site is set up right now, we have approximately 40 extra parking spots. The reason we have these extra parking spots is for in the winter when we have snow storage. We we end up still with the required number of parking spots. So it was it's a strategic number chosen to have enough storage and enough parking. Obviously, if we get 3 feet of snow 3 weeks in a row, we're going to need to be doing something to remove snow from the site like they do it at most larger parking lots. But we have planned for snow removal, and that is an area where we plan for it. But the snow removal location is not impacted by the queuing, and the majority of our parking for people using it, if you're not going to the drive-through, is on the other side. We have 74 spots on this side of the world. Approximately 55 of them are not impacted by the snow removal and are on the other side.
If it's a casual restaurant, I mean, why would you need a drive-through? I mean, it seems like it's gonna give you like a headache of traffic.
No,
I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, as I said, this is a format that more and more of that type of restaurant is going to, just because of better convenience. So yes, it's atypical. We haven't seen, we collectively have not seen a lot of them, but I can tell you that I'm working on a number of others, and it's just a fact of life that people are willing to sit in their cars to pick up, their coffee or their food, so.
It just seems like a bad spot. I mean, because most people are going to shop in the other cities, so we went over here.
Right.
I mean, that made
Right. If the restaurant is here,
sense.
if the restaurant is here, then at least initially there won't be a drive-through here.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not going to walk with my 5 kids across over here to get to there.
I mean, as a
Just as a general shopper, I just wouldn't.
I don't disagree with you. If you're shopping at the junior at the junior anchors, chances are you're going to get in your car and drive over here. If you're shopping in this area, you may want to.
All right, any other questions? Gentlemen?
I put the question for the life of me cannot think about, we travel across the country every year and stop at every town and many of this kind of thing we pass. I cannot think of a single casual restaurant that has a drive-through.
It's a relatively new format, I agree. Frankly, Mr. DeAndrea had mentioned some of them who have, this type of restaurant, this genre of restaurant that have drive-through windows. They're fairly new, so it's not unusual that you haven't seen them, but you will soon.
Well, I'll just give just throw out my idea. I'm not very familiar with it, but it seems like it's just a natural progression from, how they have at Chili's, like the stop and go. You can pull it. They have like designated parking spots for to-go people now at Chili's.
Yeah.
So it just sort of seems like that might be what their concept is. I don't know if it's necessarily would be successful. I don't know if that's exactly what they're thinking of, but in my mind, maybe that's the thought process.
That's all set.
Well, the thing is, you don't know what kind of fast food or food company's going in there. Usually when you put an order in, if it's not a fast
Sir,
food...
could you identify yourself, name and address,
Cliff
please?
Snyder, 1930 Rockland. And, it takes you 5 or 10 minutes to prepare food. Unless it's fast food or it's already prepared food, you'll have a line backed up all the way around there by the time the food comes through at the other end. Because that's why they're fast foods, because everything's already prepared. You put your order, they throw it in bags and hand it out the next window. In the so-called casual dining, unless they have stuff prepared for that, now you're on the borderline of a fast food and not fast food. It takes you 5 or 10 minutes. You call out any place and you order something, they'll tell you 10, 15 minutes, 5 minutes to come, and you come pick up your order you want to take home. Unless it's a fast food, you're not going to get it in any due time to be able to go around that window. So down the road, somebody can go put a McDonald's or whatever in there.
The fact is, we can't put McDonald's in there.
Well, it'll be some sort of a fast food, it'll have to be.
Well,
Because you can't put it together and hand it out the window that quick. I've worked in the food industry, I know what it takes.
Will this be as fast as a McDonald's? No. Will it be at McDonald's? No, because as I said, for two reasons. One, the very practical reason that a fast food place doesn't want to be located here. And
Well, I understand that.
and
That makes sense.
our traffic counts don't account for a fast food.
I understand, but I don't see how they can prepare the food if it's not a fast food place, fast enough to get out. They're gonna order up a regular menu. That means somebody's gotta cook it, fry it, boil it, whatever, put it in your bag, your box, or something to hand you at the next window to take out. It's gonna take 4 or 5 minutes more, and if they're feeding other people at the same time, they'll have to set up a special chef or someone to just handle what comes through the drive-through window.
Listen, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on food
I
preparation.
know, but that's why I say I don't understand the purpose of a fast food window in that kind of a setting.
It's just another matter of convenience for those choosing to do it.
How can it be a convenience? You're gonna have to wait quite a while in your car.
Well, you know what, here's what I'll tell you. These retailers and restaurants who do this, they know their business very, very well. Far better than me, probably far better than you.
Well, they'll probably have to set up something special.
And they will analyze our site plan. If it works for them, then they'll sign a lease. If they say it just doesn't work for us, they're not going to come.
No, I don't trust it anyway, so, but when the time comes with the fast food, they should be able to come forward and say, we want to put a drive-through here, and why we want to put it through, and that we can supply the people at the rate that people expect to be served when they come through that fast food, because if you're having a casual dining room, you go anywhere, any of the diners around here, you go in there, you're going to stand there 4, 5, 10 minutes before they come out with that bag of food for you.
I mean, is there a possibility, a company like Chili's, and I don't know this, but right now, you can call in orders, and the difference is that you have to go, you get there, you have to find a place to park.
They have the designated spots.
And maybe a company like Applebee's or Chili's is trying to say, okay, now instead of parking your car, you drive up to the window, you give them the order number that you called in, and you take it and you leave.
And this is all speculation anyway, because you're sort of representing to us that it can't be because of the traffic issues that you've already supplied to the state and what you've already been approved for. It can't be a McDonald's, or it can't be a White Castle. No, it can't be a Burger King, can't be a Wendy's, right? So I know that you can't divulge sort of, what is going in.
But I'm telling you, as a practical matter, it cannot be a fast food.
So that's what you're telling us, but maybe it would be helpful if you were to list off, not the names of possible stores, but the types, because we were trying to, and I know that, the residents don't necessarily need to believe what's going to actually go in there at this stage, but I think everyone's just awful concerned about it being a McDonald's or being even though that's impossible.
It could be a White Castle.
I don't think it's a White Castle either. I mean, do you understand?
I mean, if you have a Bible, I'll put my hand on and raise my right hand. I don't know what else I can say. It will not be fast food. And as I said, nor would they want to come to this location. It's just not their model. And I will tell you, as someone who represents all types of retailers, they don't operate outside their narrow little confines of where they want to go.
John, the assurances, the place to put the assurances isn't necessarily on the Word of God, but on the proposed amendment to the special permit conditions. The special permit conditions, the way that the application is drafted right now, if you go back to OSTC and get new approvals, then it can be a McDonald's. And if you were, I know you have absolutely no plans to get this property permit ready and then flip it to cut your losses. But
here's a way in which you can give yourself some assurance. Fast food restaurants now are defined largely as those restaurants that derive like 70 to 80% of their income from the takeout menu. If you want to put a percentage of 40% or 30%, we'd be happy to do that.
How would we manage that?
I'm just trying to help solve your problem. And I would tell you the other reason why it can't or won't be a McDonald's because there's only one ordering station. As you know, McDonald's has recently revised its drive-through, so you have 2 ordering windows to make it more efficient.
White Castle only has one. So,
Dawn Williams, 137 Jefferson Drive in Milford. I think that there's a little bit of semantics going on here because it sounds to me like you're describing a fast food restaurant. Even though you don't want to call it a McDonald's or Wendy's, maybe Chili's wants to get in a little bit on that action. So it sounds like a fast food, it smells like a rose, it looks like a rose, it's colored like a rose, it's a rose. It's a fast food restaurant. Anything that is slow food is I go into the restaurant, I have to wait for the food. I go out of the restaurant. Fast food is I drive up to a window. That's fast. End of story. Okay, you can argue it with me, tomorrow morning, but that's fast food. Number 1. And in that indication, I agree with Mr. Regier that we could have a McDonald's up there. In Southbury, there is a McDonald's that is off of the highway. It is very off of the highway. And it is up off of the main road. So you have to know that it's up there. It's up there because it is attracted by the other businesses that are around it. So if these businesses that are in your proposed shopping center are successful, McDonald's may look at, Wendy's may look at that area and say, they're getting a lot of traffic up there, this would be a good place for us to be. There's a window that's open, that's all I'm saying. And you're saying, I keep hearing you say, your assumptions. I'm assuming. You know what happens when we assume?
Well, I'm not assuming that this is going to be a fast food restaurant. Could it be food served quickly? Yes, but it is
Once
not.
again, you
it is not.
I
think we all know what it means when we say fast food.
No, we don't. I do. I know what I mean I know what it means when I say fast food. Fast food is I don't care if you're Chili's, I don't care what you are. If I can drive up there, it's fast food. Okay?
Well, then you and I just have a different set of definitions.
It's not a fast food restaurant.
That's the definition of it.
But I mean, as a practical matter, if McDonald's or Wendy's or anyone wanted to come in here, they're going to want a reconfigured drive-through. They can't live with this sort of setup. They'll have to come back before you.
I'm not satisfied with that either. I haven't heard McDonald's come in here and say that that's enough. I haven't heard it from them. That's what you're telling me. I don't believe it. Sorry.
So can I ask you a question? One of the things, we don't want fast food, but what about fast food don't we want? Do we not want the cars screaming through, 25 an hour, 30 an hour, picking up a bag of burgers and fries? That's what we don't want? Or do we?
I think it's the noise. I think it's the noise that we don't want going through there. And to the neighbor's point, it is going to be very disruptive. If there's that much traffic coming through, attracted to that kind of restaurant. The traffic alone is going to be a nightmare because you're right across from the town dump. And I've seen what that looks like on a Saturday morning. I'm not going that way. I'll go to Branford to go shopping. Thank you very much.
I watch it from my living room window every Saturday morning.
So the concern, not necessarily that it's fast food, but concern that, because however we want to define it, whatever you want to call it, the concern would be increased traffic, increased noise, trash blowing around. But we've talked about this before, and I actually went over to the McDonald's in Guilford, which is a perfect example of what could be wrong. And it was clean. It was all picked up, and there were guys walking around with those little sweepy things cleaning up.
It's up and down Moose Hill Road where they pitch it out after they get halfway home.
Yeah.
But you can't police somebody throwing something out of their car window.
Well, I came home this week one night and there was 6-pack of beer thrown on my front lawn. So I can't outrule, selling beer in Guilford because someone threw it on my front lawn.
That 30 times, okay? And to your point, sir, about, we can't regulate that. We can regulate who is downstream from us. So right now, we don't have a restaurant like that downstream from us. But we will, when we do, then we'll get their trash. But thank you for listening to us.
That seems to work.
Someone else, I see an arm, yeah, yes, sir.
Brian Dinsey, 2751. Just give my 2 cents. Taking a little trip to Seymour, Connecticut, where I've seen things just like this. There's McDonald's off Route 64, I believe. I forget the plaza name, but in the plaza there's like a Coulter Place, there's a couple restaurants, there's a Wells Fargo, then there's a McDonald's. It's just like this. You have to stop at a light, turn into it, go up the main driveway, go to McDonald's, pull in through the drive-thru, pull around. They get no business, because if you're gonna pull in, stop at a light, pull in, you're sitting down at a nice diner where it's like a Japanese Mexican fusion restaurant. Never tried it, I don't want to, but. And then just off exit 19 Wakely Avenue in Seymour, it's like comes to a dead end, just turns in a roundabout. But down there it's a nice diner called The Meeting Place. Love it, great weekend specials. But they use a drive-thru. It's a casual dining, but they use a drive-thru. They have 3 specials that everyone around it knows. They have coffee and bagel cream cheese, or like butter toast, or like your sausage and cheese. Or you can call ahead of time and pick it up, which I absolutely love. Like if I'm going to church and I have to go somewhere else, I call ahead of time, like I want a Captain Crunch French toast. And it's made ahead of time. They'll say, okay, this amount of time you come in, and it's always ready. It's always ready. And I have seen a lot of casual dining restaurants, like diners, stuff like this. They use it because for people on the go, it's kind of useful. Like I like it. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, that's great, and I love Captain Crunch French toast. That's wonderful.
Hey, Rich, if I may.
Richard Wallace.
I think what Josh was talking about, we're looking at the evolution of a business.
You're right.
I mean, years ago, pharmacies didn't have a drive-through.
Banks.
We have drive-throughs all over town right now. We have.
So as our society evolves and as we become more and more car dependent, it probably will be more and more stuff like this. More questions? There's hands all over the place now. Anthony.
Pardon my ignorance, but is there a stoplight on this driveway on Route 1? There will be.
Can you say your name, please?
Okay. Oh, sorry, Tony Figueroa, Granite Road. Speaking either for or against this special application, it seems to me as though this application would be deemed commercial and as such would fall into the noise ordinance, the existing noise ordinance structure in town. So they would be subject to the 55 day and 45 evening dB noise sensitivities to the adjacent neighbors. Is that correct?
Probably true.
Well, maybe that should be considered. I don't know if this gentleman, wherever he went, but if that goes to his issue,
right,
that may very well be the issue that puts it to bed, that there is a noise ordinance that this applicant would be subject to, that at 45 dBA, it's about as loud as that air conditioner.
Right.
So that may very well put it to rest, and you should consider writing that into the approval or the denial.
Get that?
Well, if it's an ordinance, they're bound by it whether it's here or not. So
right,
to the extent that ordinance
well,
applies.
that's the question. Are they bound by that?
Absolutely. If it's an ordinance,
well, there it is.
It doesn't
Right.
need to be in here. If they can't meet it, they can't do it.
And there it is.
Right, and you know, there could be a nuisance factor involved with that. I know that sometimes when I read the police blotter in the Guilford Courier, they talk about some drugstore in town that has its garbage pickups done at 4 in the morning, and the neighbors are screaming, crying how crazy it is that they get woken up. And you know, that's something that no matter what goes there, we'll sort of have to manage, or you'll sort of have to manage, or DDR will have to manage. Because you know, no matter what goes there, that's potentially could be a problem. I saw some more hands. Brian?
Yeah, Brian McClone, Economic Development. Just to kind of go for the record, DDR did not request the drive-through capability. It was the Table 5 study work that was done a year and a half ago, and we as a committee recommended a drive-through capability on this site. We all know we have 3 others in town, food service, not to mention the banks and the drugstores and the other places like that. But I mean, we have 3 others that at one time we didn't have drive-throughs, then we allowed them, they got built, then we took it away, but they're still there and thriving and being productive. And as a committee, we thought it was hypocritical is not the right word, but we thought it was unusual that we have 3 thriving businesses that rely heavily on the drive-throughs. And so we, as a Table 5 committee, put this in here. So it may, in fact, make it more attractive in the short term and or the long term for DDR to lease this space. An observation. You know, we're talking about land use, and I think we have to be careful. I appreciate John's comments about casual dining and fast food, and you know, there's questions of where do we draw the line of what is considered that. You know, is Starbucks, Frank, more casual dining over, you know, Dunkin' Donuts? Does somebody define it as that? So I think we have to just be careful. We're trying to put a limitation potentially. That's a tone I was thinking, I was hearing, that there's some limitation, and then we're going to try to define. And as it's today, it's the hamburger place or Five Guys or Chili's, and we're going to try to start naming examples. I think that sets us up for some danger when this is, again, a land use issue. And the judgment call, I think, could be tough. And then from just one other comment about the outdoor seating, again, I've made comments, you know, just about every restaurant in Guilford has or will have outdoor seating. It's a preferred method. We as customers prefer to have it outdoors. So I'd like to see the outdoor seating get approved as well, because again, it's another trend. And if you look at just about every restaurant we have in town, they have outdoor seating today.
So I got a question for you, because you know I happen to agree. I'm not personally, I'm not opposed to drive-throughs. I think that you know it is kind of where we're heading, and I don't really always get the whole problem behind noise. Obviously, you don't want it late at night, and garbage you've got to have it picked up. But do you see a time in Guilford where there'll be more than 4 drive-throughs? I mean, I would imagine there would be, but like, why do we only have 4?
Well, I mean, from a practical sense, this is the only place in town that we allow a drive-through restaurant. So, oh, yeah, Steve reminded me, the J.J. Sullivan property on River Street technically has a drive-through allowed in their oil business. That C4 zone has a drive-through.
Really? So you can drive through and get some oil, or?
It's allowed. Okay, so, I mean,
Give
you
me
ask
a
for
reverse
drive-through, do I see, I mean, right now, there are no other places allowed and approved, so we, as the zoning committee, have to change that if we want to have other restaurant types that allow drive-through.
Yeah. I wonder if we should try and figure out what people want us to do. Well, thank you. That's great. Any more questions, comments? Oh, more hands. This young lady.
Deborah Abbott, Norfolk Road. I've been walking in Westwood since 1976, and it wasn't until we had drive-through restaurants that I found trash through hills. And so I'm just expecting that this will increase it, especially since it's here in Westwood.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Gentlemen?
Tony Abbott, Norfolk Road. Fascinating conversation, Alex. 2 phrases come to mind. One is "like check," and the other is "nose of the camel in the tent." I don't know what you guys are being asked to approve. I do know restaurants tend to have a fairly short life. I do know you approved the permit for the drive-through. There's absolutely nothing to prevent somebody you would perhaps rather not have in here come in when the first place fails. And they tend to fail on a fairly regular basis. So I don't quite know why the first professor up there was put through the grill to approve a set of stone steps that he had a picture of. And you're being asked to approve a blank check for something that you have no clue as to what's going in or how it's going to be managed. You're my representatives. Help me.
Thank you. That's great.
It's essentially pretty simple. You regulate a use. You don't regulate the user. Listen, as Mr. DeAndrew said, you can go on the DDR website and see who their tenants are. They're not the guy who decides to stop practicing law and open up a restaurant to have a quieter type of life. You know, these are national restaurants, national retailers. They know what they're doing. They don't open stores without knowing that they're going to succeed. What you are approving are the mechanics of this site. If there's any changes that the restaurant requires, we are required to come back to you. If there's a change in the queuing, if there's a change in the location of the window, that's what you're approving. You're approving what you approve anytime. You're approving tonight what you approved when you approved this building. You don't know who the users are going to be. Could there be a possibility that tenants will come and go? Absolutely. That's life. That's just, you know, we don't have a lot of the stores that were around when we were kids. Will every store that comes to this site be there for time immemorial? No, it won't.
Attorney Nuff, are you really conflating a site plan application that we recently approved at our absolute lowest level of review with special permit, which is what Table 5 recommended, where denial can be made for almost any reason in the whole world, which is what is before us right now? Because when you came before us last time, as you remember, you said, this is a site plan application. So this is the very lowest level of review that we face. And now, of course, we're, especially due to Table 5 recommendations, they didn't recommend that this use be permitted with a blank check, as he was saying. They recommended that it be allowed by special permit if it was very clear that it was going to work out.
Right, and here's the thing. You don't have unlimited discretion here because this is a special permit.
That's correct.
So there are limitations on your discretion. But similar to your site plan application, the special permit application and regulations and your site plan regulations govern the use of the property. It doesn't regulate. Neither special permit nor site plan regulates the user. So the last speaker asked, well, who's it going to be? Well, I can't tell you. And I will tell you this, it doesn't matter who it's going to be.
No,
could there be?
Who it's going to be? Excuse me. I was asking much more specifics about the nature of the use, but since you cannot give us anything more specific about the nature of the use,
I can give you all.
basically saying any use that uses one drive-through and has 11 car parallel, no matter what its other characteristics may be, is acceptable. That's pretty much a blank check.
Those other, what else under your police powers would you want to regulate for a drive-through? You want to know that there's sufficient queuing.
What is the cost of trash pickup in the fast food business?
Listen, you can, if someone wants to be that rude, you can go in, grab your food, park, grab your food, come out, eat it, and throw it out the window just as easy as you can at the drive-through. Listen, I remember the days when it was common that you see someone, toss their McDonald's bag out the window. Fortunately, those days mostly are gone. Most people are considering not to do that. But listen, you can do that anywhere.
You mentioned limits to our discretion under special permit review. Would you mind describing what you believe the limits to our discretion are under special permit review?
I'm trying to remember.
This is really
under
way
your
off.
regulations, it's consistent.
You did represent to us just now that you know that there are certain limitations to our discretion. What are
Typically
they?
impacts on property values, impacts on the neighborhood, whether it's consistent with the neighborhood.
Traffic is one that we can consider, property values, they're spelled out in 271 specifically. It's not unlimited that I don't like McDonald's, so you're not getting it. That is not an appropriate reason to deny
And there's been no evidence that this will have any impact on property values. It won't. We're hundreds and hundreds of feet away from the closest residential neighbor. And she's 400 feet away, conservatively. Most are multiples of that.
So what you're saying is, you're already approved right now to have at least a Chili's in there, without a drive-through, right? And
Yeah,
so
we can put a restaurant in there.
Of course. So my point is that if you were to put a Chili's in there without a drive-through versus a Chili's in there with a drive-through, it's not going to affect the property value either way.
It's not going to affect property values of neighbors. And it's not going to affect whether someone decides to be rude and throw their garbage out the window.
Because you could already put the Chili's in there.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Lots of talk about lighting, and it's supposed to be shut off at 10 o'clock at night. There was a huge education with all the neighbors. That's what we're going to do, and the July said everything was the same. The new approvals.
Well, it would hold.
10 o'clock at night, lights out.
It would still be applied. If it's in there, it would be applied.
We can't override that at special permit time. If there's a condition in any of the approvals that have been granted, they got to live by them. Okay, this will not change that, whatever we do here.
That's the wetlands approval too, I believe.
Right, wherever it was approved. To the extent it was approved, it's a binding condition.
Is that a fact that they have to turn the lights out at 10 o'clock?
Whatever the approval says, I don't know if it was 10, 11, 12, 1 hour after the store closed, but whatever it is,
I'm
you're
embarrassed
bound
that
by
Mr.
it.
Walsh remembered, and I did, but I think he's right, that our wetland approval did require that the lights be shut off at a certain time. Whether it's 10 or 11, I don't remember specifically.
But to the extent that doesn't happen, that's a zoning
But
violation.
nothing you're doing here can override our
Right.
wetland approval and those conditions.
Correct, that's correct. All right. Anyone else? Kim?
Kimberly Robb at 222 Flag Marsh. I actually came for another reason tonight, but I just found out about this. I'm actually as close to an abutting neighbor as you can get without being abutting. And I'm on the restaurant end. So I was not notified of this, so it's interesting that I just happened to be here tonight. I just wanted to express my concerns. The lights are a concern of the cars driving around.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to head straight towards my property. When we talk about queuing of 10, 11, 12 cars, I'm thinking exhaust fumes. And I'm farther from the high school than I am from this, and I can hear every bell that goes off in the high school all day long.
Right, you're right.
My concern is, even though this is supposed to be at conversation level, I don't buy that on a still night, where the sound is going to travel.
You're absolutely right. I used to live near the high school, probably further away than you, and I remember when people were walking around the track at night, I could hear what they were saying, and that was like 2000. I don't even know how it worked, but I could hear what they were saying at my house. So you're right. And you know, to your point, if you're thinking cars in that exhaust, but I would presume that there'll be some diesel vehicles too.
Just any idling. I mean, our whole environmental friendly society is you don't want vehicles idling. And when I think of 10 or 12 cars sitting up there idling for hours at a time, that bothers me. And then the trash. I'm between there and the high school. I see Dunkin' Donuts cups, McDonald's bags every single day of the week. The kids on the way to the high school,
I know.
more coming.
Yep. You're right. Sir, you're up.
Okay, Joe DiPiazza, I was talking a little while ago. I'm not going to say anything tremendously profound here today. I'll just give you a few reflections. We know that there are Chinese restaurants that have sit-in and Chinese restaurants that have takeout. Okay. To some degree, I think what this gentleman is talking about is let's imagine a Chinese restaurant that was strictly sit-in, or a chain of them, that now wants to add takeout. That's the most benign interpretation I think I can put on what he's talking about. However, let's say you approved what he's talking about relative to the drive-through, but then said something as broad as subject to revocation in light of complaints from the neighbors. Well, that would be perhaps too broad. Somehow, I think there must be, I'm not at all up on the restrictions on lighting and noise, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever. Somehow, there are lines that have to be drawn between what looks like a good idea for sit-in Chinese restaurants to add a drive-through window for takeout, and really broad restriction about revocation if neighbors start to complain. You know, that would be too broad. Some line has to be drawn between those two situations I'm describing. But that's all I can say on that. As I said, it's not profound, it's just two extremes we have to work between.
Great, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Got a lot of input. And you know, there are things that we really need to take into account, like the headlights facing people's property.
Well, you know, I can tell you that, you know, as a matter of fact, Chris and I, before the hearing, were sort of looking at our Google Maps on our phone. I mean, the amount of vegetation, in fact, no, Chris? Thank you. The amount of vegetation that we are adding to the site around the entire periphery, including toward Sandy's house, up to the north, is quite substantial. So when people are waiting in line for their food, the lights are pointing toward Route 1.
Yep.
And then as they turn around, their lights are pointing to our access drive. Now, they're going to turn around and come back out where there's substantial vegetation, but that could happen with or without a drive-through. So the concern about traffic lights or car lights associated with the drive-through, it really is a non-issue because of the directions that they're facing and because of the substantial landscaping that we're going to be adding, as well as the very, very substantial landscaping that exists now. I mean, if you want to pull out your phone and, you know, and put this in as an address, you can barely see the homes in the area because the vegetation is so heavy.
You're right, and the one thing I would say is, you know, during the summer, that's absolutely true. And I know where Ms. Brockett's house is, and I know that when the cars are first pulling into the queue, that's when their lights are going to be heading in her direction.
Well, keep in mind, as they come this direction, this is Joan Drive. There's no house until you get on the other side of Joan Drive and up a ways.
Right. Right.
So it's, you know, it may disturb some squirrels, but it's not going to disturb anyone in their homes.
Dawn?
Yes, two questions. One is, what sort of vegetation are you talking about? Is it evergreen or is it deciduous?
It's both.
A full growth or not quite full? It may not cover completely.
Could you
And
say your
number
names for the record each time so that when Katie makes notes, she doesn't have to figure out whose voice it was?
Katie's gone.
You know, if you'd like to take a look at the landscaping plan, I mean,
No,
there's a call out for every species here, and I will tell you that it is exceedingly dense in addition to the existing vegetation. Everything you see here is a new plant that we're adding to the site.
I understand that and I respect that. But if it's not all evergreen, it's going to be see-through during winter time. That's number one. Number two, you didn't address the exhaust problem, especially with the drive-through. You're going to have cars idling, so how would you address that?
Cars will idle. Cars will idle as they sit here to pull into the site. Cars idle at schools, picking up and dropping off their kids. Cars idle. There's nothing we can do about that. That's
Cars idle more at a drive-through.
And the Guilford Planning and Zoning regulations say nothing about idling cars or car pollution or any type of pollution.
No, they don't, but you're asking for a permit to have a drive-through.
It's not regulated.
And I think we're referring to more scientific, something more scientific to say that an idling car is going to emit more emissions problems than a car being turned on and off.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that.
Well, okay, so
I
I
will tell
got.
you that any exhaust is not going to bother any neighbor because of the distance away from the driveway.
You said the closest neighbor was 400 feet?
The closest conservatively is 400.
Right, that will bother that neighbor, whoever that is.
Your turn.
Sandra Wilson, there's already regulations at each school that you're not allowed to idle your car for more than 10 minutes.
Is that a school-specific regulation, or is that?
But there's a sign outside every school, do not idle your car more than 10 minutes.
Is it cars or is it buses? There's a difference.
I think it would be for both, because it doesn't specify car, bus,
Connecticut school bus.
So
I think we're getting a little far afield.
You're right, we are. I have one more question,
Sure.
and I'm done. This unnamed fast food, not fast food, drive-through, is this the kind of food, could this be the kind of food, and I know you can't say for sure, but maybe would this be the kind of food that you would pick up at the window and then go pull into a parking spot and eat it? Because, I guess what I'm saying is, there's going to be a parking lot full of people just eating their food, and in the winter...
No, because at that point, I think you're going to go inside. I think the whole point of the drive-through is to take it someplace else.
Right, so this is the kind of thing where if you're in a rush and you want to pick up something and head home with it, that's what this is. This is not the...
I can see people bringing it back to their office, bringing it home. No, I think this is going to be food that's more appropriate to be eaten with a fork than in your hand.
Okay, and that's great. Unless it was White Castle. All right.
Close that hearing.
Last chance. This is a big one. Any more questions, guys?
Close it.
Okay, so can I please have a motion to close the vote? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you very much, Council. All right.
Not done with me yet.
Okay.
Signs is the next one.
Okay. Okay, so let's, anyone want to care to make a motion to open number 5?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, who is doing this one?
Again, John Duff, 147 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut, on behalf of DDR Guilford LLC. This is an application to amend the signage regulations for the SCW zone, specifically section 273-206. Again, back in 2008, the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted signage regulations specifically for this site as a result of the sort of the modification and the terms of the tenant mix and the type of development. We are asking that those regulations be modified somewhat. I would tell you that these have been fully reviewed by DRC. They have seen all the boards that you're going to see this evening, and it incorporates all their suggestions. So, and I know that to a large extent, P&Z relies heavily on DRC. I would tell you that DRC has seen all these boards. In fact, they made some recommendations which we've adopted, which I'll tell you about. So, in terms of any concerns about what their thoughts are, they've all been incorporated. And George and I think Katie have been involved in each of those meetings. So, let me, if you, I don't know if you have a copy of the regulation with you, but the first item in the regulations is shopping center signs. I'll show to you, to the commission, and I'll show to the public. What our original regulation said was that we are allowed to have entrance signs, one on either side of our entrance drive, flanking the driveway. So, and this is an example of the entrance sign in this location and here as well. So this is the plan view, this is an elevation view, and these would be located on either side of the main access drive as you pull in. They have a suggestion that as you get to the top of the access drive and you need to make that decision whether you go left or right to the out parcel or to the main development, that there also be sort of a wayfinding sign there as well. And they were sort of adamant that it should reflect the name of the site, the rock pile. And so they were really sort of enamored of, no, we thought it was a great idea. So we decided to adopt their suggestion and incorporates a very serious, stone veneer look. I don't know if it's veneer, but a stone motif, I guess, is the better description, both at the entranceway and at the top of the access drive. So we appreciate their input. So that's the first element of the permitted signs, which are what we call shopping center signs that will identify Guilford Commons. The next set of regulations on signage governs the signage on the front facades of the buildings. As before, as in the 2008 version of the regulations, there is a sort of a tiered not tiered approval process, but tiered size. So the bigger the store, the bigger the sign. So we have adopted that same sort of tiered system in terms of determining the size of the signage for each of the specific tenants. And what we call that is the primary tenant storefront signs. The DRC also worked with us a lot on we're calling the rear and side facing signs. And, so we have an unusual site in that, unlike other shopping centers where you pull in and you can only see the fronts of the buildings, the back of the house is back of house, and there's only a need for signage on the fronts of the stores. Because we have buildings that that can be viewed from multiple angles and viewed from both 95 and Post Road, and we're wrapping the architecture around the buildings as well, that there's a section in the regs entitled Side and Rear Facade Signs. And rather than draft a 40-page signage ordinance, what we did was just attach this plan, which describes where the side and rear facade signs could be located. So, and these are probably in your packet as well. So what they've done is, so for instance, it was DRC's suggestion, I'm going to start with building C. It was DRC's suggestion that, just in terms of architecture, that they wanted to see, this sort of back of the building C that you would see from 95, to break up this horizon of the building a little bit. And in particular, they wanted us to add a tower element, which we've done and which what you saw and approved as part of our site plan application back in July. And you saw this too, in the fact that we would have the tenant sign. So what we're proposing is that the one tenant in the middle, which is our primary junior tenant, they would be permitted to have a sign that faces toward 95. And in addition, we also could locate some signage on the tower element, both that could be viewed from the east as well as the south. So here you're looking at one elevation, here you're looking at the other. So that's building C. Building B, which runs along parallel to Post Road, you'll see there's no signage at all on the rear of that building. In terms of building B signage from the side, is as you come up this road, the main access drive, you're going to be able to see building B. You're going to be able to see the eastern facade of building B, and that is this facade here, and the other side of, so this is B, yes, I'm sorry. And then in terms of building A, there's signage on actually all four sides because it can be viewed from all four sides. Both the Post Road side, as you come up the main access drive, and as you make that right-hand turn from the access into the parking lot.
John, can I
sure.
interrupt you for a second? I'm sorry. I can't tell from the drawing, and I'm kind of now first thinking about this. But at night, is this going to be illuminated, like blinking lights that, is it
no blinking, no.
It's not blinking, but it is illuminated?
Yeah, the signs will be illuminated, yes.
And about how high will these letters be?
How high? They are
3 feet high?
Well,
like that.
The size of the letters. Well, it will vary by the tenant and the size of the tenant because, as I said, there's the tier system of signage.
So worst case scenario, how big will those signs be?
Well, the biggest tenants are on the junior anchor. So this elevation shows the junior anchor signage.
And that's facing 95?
No. That faces.
That's the inside.
So this facade is located here, so
that's the
no one can see it.
Right.
Unless you choose, unless you choose to pull into the property,
right,
and the signs are located here, you're not going to see those signs.
So will any of them be facing 95 or US Route 1?
There will be some signs facing 95, yes.
And how big will those be?
They will be.
can be ballpark.
This sign for the primary junior tenant, those letters are 3 feet high. And these signs in their total are 14 feet high combined.
Right. But the actual name of the building, the tenant, is going to be spelled out in 3-foot high letters that are lit up at night.
Yes, that'll be, it's similar to Clifton Crossing. If you've seen their signage at
No, they're
night.
not, the lights, the sign is not lit, they're indirectly lit.
No, the sign itself is lit.
Oh, they're not neon lights or anything like that, they're backlit.
No, there's, the regulations as they did before allow certain types of signs. They can be internally illuminated channel letters, they can be dimensional letters, they can be, so there's a variety of type of signs that they can be.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But that was changed.
I mean, what you're not going to see is just a box sign, where it's a large white box and there's letters on there and the entire thing is illuminated. So it's a nicer level of signage. As I said, the best example I can give you is Crooked Crossing.
So could I ask, you're asking for change
Yes,
in the regulations that currently exist?
yes. I mean, it's,
So specifically, what are the changes?
Like, what did you have before and now you want?
okay, so the changes are, we are, in terms of the shopping center signs, we are adding the ability to add tenants to those shopping center signs as you pull in.
Right.
At the DRC's request, we are adding the
Directional.
the allowance of a sign at the top of the driveway. In terms of the primary storefront signs, we are modifying the methodology of calculating the size of signs from size of the store as compared to the height of the letters to size of the store to the square footage of the letters. It's just a more typical way of measuring signage.
So potentially that change on the signs on the front of the store is changing from height to square footage. Will that allow for a larger sign or a smaller sign in some cases?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know. I mean, it's not, in large part, it's going to depend upon the stores because it all ties into, so for instance, the first level is for tenants with a lease area of 17,000 square feet and above. They get to have the largest signs, they have the largest stores. So, and then it's tied to square feet of signage per linear foot of wall. So I can't tell you because I don't know exactly where the demising walls are going to be, exactly how big those signs are going to be, because it's going to depend on how much space they take. But if one tenant takes more space in the middle, then necessarily the tenants on either side are going to have less signage because they're going to have less linear feet of that front facade.
But at all times, these would be internally lit signs that would spell out the name of the store. Or
Yes.
Now, are any of them like logos or pictures, or is it just names?
Well, no, I mean, you could, if part of a retailer's sign incorporates a specific logo, it'll have logo, but that will count toward our overall signage.
So if it were Macy's, it would have that red star or whatever.
Exactly.
George, did you want to mention anything about our existing?
What your question was, but these regulations and the impact that they will have on this particular shopping center were very carefully reviewed by design review to determine that this type of signage and these regulations and requirements in this new proposal fit the character of the proposed shopping center, and that they're consistent with, typical shopping center sign regulations. We're not proposing anything that's significantly different than the old regulations in terms of size or off-site visibilities.
Right. This is one of those times for me, though, that while the design review committee does wonderful work, and I love them for it, and the place looks great, I love Guilford. This is one of those times where I had not considered that this was going to be, let's say it's odd lot, job lot trading, and they're going to have 3 fine letters that say odd lot.
Well, at one point, didn't we have, we allowed for the tenants between 20,000, up to 20,000 square feet would have 48 inches high, which is...
Really?
Yes, so that
4
was...
feet, right.
Yeah, so that was our, before they had the other approval. So this is sort of nothing new. I mean, it is new in terms of they're proposing something different, but at one point we did allow up to 48 inches.
Wow.
I want to go back because I'm still confused. George, you're saying that these proposed changes have been reviewed by design review committee?
They've also been reviewed by Reggie.
They've been reviewed by Reggie?
She's the person who does the sign permits. And these are eminently reasonable sign requirements, and the specific sign plan that is resulting from it, at least to the extent that we can know it now without knowing the tenants and how big the stores are going to be, is consistent with reasonable shopping center sign designs.
And just by way of comparison, and thank you to Mr. Hirschman for pointing this out, for tenant, this is the existing sign regulation. For tenants with a lease area of 20,000 square feet above, maximum letter height should be 48 inches. For tenants with a lease area of 10,001 square feet to 19,999 square feet, the maximum letter height should be 42 inches. And then it continues to proceed down there.
But that's on the front of the building that faces the inside of the lot, right? Is that also the back of the building?
No, but in the original regulations as well, we also had a different sign provision, and it's available by looking at, if you go online, you can click on the link. We also have signage in the same locations as we're proposing now, specifically wrapping around Building A, the corner, the side of Building B, and the back corner and the back of Building C. So in terms of location, that's the same as well.
So, and just to bring it full circle, that restaurant with the drive-through, is that have any of these signs facing outside too?
Yep. Yes, so here's the out parcel building. So this is the facade that is facing the main access drive. Here's the drive-through window. So this is the facade that faces Post Road. This is the other side elevation, which is here. So you see a sign here, which is a sign here.
What about the back? Does that have those 3-foot-high signs on it too, that are lit up at night?
No, because the way we did this, just to sort of simplify it, is that signage on the front is tied into the linear footage of building that you lease. And all other signs, the side and the rear, have to comply with the signage, with this signage plan.
Can you hold up some of those and show the audience what you were telling the community?
Sure. This is the out parcel building, and this is where if we had a drive-through, this is where the building would be located. This is the signage on that building. So, it's an attractive building. So it's not uncommon to have on the front. This is the signage that would be appropriate, and the two sides. We show no signage on here, which is the one facing Post Road. This is the side facing to the north. And then this is back of house, which is facing to the west.
No signs.
Well, there actually are signs, but there's no background that highlights them, but there are signs there.
And those are illuminated?
No, they would be illuminated.
Yeah.
Is your proposal simply strictly ratio of more square footage a store has?
Yep.
The bigger the sign?
Yep.
No table with 4 or 5 levels. I'm just going to throw the numbers out. At 1,000 square feet, sign can be this big. At 2,000, it could be.
No, because the problem is that you don't know how that square footage is going to be allotted within a building. So, for instance,
how much frontage you could have?
Well, it's a factor of both. It's a factor of how many square feet you're leasing. That puts you into which level. And then beyond that is based upon the linear footage of your building frontage. So obviously, the calculation of building area is the width of your building or your linear footage by the depth. So, and that can vary.
Can I say one other thing? Let me just talk a little bit about the history of all this. The commission, obviously sign regulations, are very complicated and technical subject. The basic sign regulations that the town has that are part of the zoning code were authored and created by the Design Review Committee and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. When Guilford Commons was originally proposed in 2000 and whatever it was, they proposed a new set of sign regulations specific to the shopping center, to the SCW zone, which were designed to fit with the type of shopping center that was proposed then. Those regulations were reviewed by the Design Review Committee, and they were recommended to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You approved them. Those are the regulations currently in effect for this property. The new shopping center, which has a different kind of character and tenant type, in the view of the shopping center owners, requires a different set of sign rules. Those sign rules, which are subject to the hearing tonight, were reviewed by the Design Review Committee, not just the words in the text, but more importantly, the way those rules were translated into actual or at least hypothetical signs on the buildings. And they were reviewed thoroughly by them, and the Design Review Committee is recommending them for your approval. Now, keep in mind also that no specific sign permit applications are being approved now. When they have actual tenants, then there will be specific sign applications pursuant to the new regulations, if you approve them, or if not, pursuant to the old regulations, which would then be again reviewed by the Design Review Committee for their advice and comment to Reggie, who would approve or not the actual sign applications. So there's a whole fairly elaborate set of protocols relating to all this. I know you're being asked to put a lot of faith in others.
Right, and that really gets to what I was saying, which I think they do a great job.
Alternative to that.
They do a great job.
And so we've always done sign regulations, you know.
It's just I'm visualizing 3-foot-high letters that are lit up at night.
Only at 95 though.
Yeah. Keep in mind, you're seeing that you're thinking of looking at it from I-95 going 60 miles an hour through the trees, and it's about 1,000 feet away.
And don't we already
I mean, the only property that rear facade of Building C abuts is the Russo project, which sits down below us, and then you get to 95.
Right.
And the type and size of the signs allowed in this project are the same type and size signs that are allowed everywhere else in Guilford under our sign regulations. Nothing outrageous or significantly different about these.
I got a question for John. Is DDR, the property management of the complex, going to be responsible for the signage, or the individual tenants?
In terms of getting their permits?
No, as far as maintenance.
Andrew, do you know how that works?
DDR does. DDR maintains the signage.
They will.
So they won't be blinking.
And Reggie will make sure of that too.
It's consistently the same throughout the complex if you look at the signs. Is that correct?
Yes. You know, I know that you have a regulation that says that you cannot close a public hearing on a regulation or a zone change application. You have to leave it open for one more night. So we are cognizant of that. But we're going to ask you that you not reopen the hearing at your next meeting at the first, because I can't be here. So we would ask that you hold it open until October 17th or 16th.
We wouldn't want to have one of these meetings unless you were here, because we love you.
So isn't it the 15th?
No, I think,
We're talking about the 15th. Right?
Okay, the 15th.
That's fine.
We just say the second meeting anyway.
Right, the second meeting in October.
Right. All right. Any more questions, gentlemen?
If you'd like, I think maybe it would be appropriate, since Reggie's really the expert on signs, she's not here at the moment, but we can ask her to elaborate on this a little bit more and be here for your meeting on the 15th to help answer more questions along these lines.
It sounds like they shut the ventilation system off, so I guess it's getting late.
That's a sign.
Yes. So, okay, any questions from anybody else while we have the public meeting going on now? So we want to continue this until, there we go. Yes, sir.
Just a little suggestion, not to toot my own horn, but a lot of these drawings could have been put on a computer through a projector, and when you zoom in, everybody could have seen, an enlargement of a particular building and whatever you were trying to concentrate on, and when you tried to show the sign to the committee, you wouldn't have to do that, and separate showing to us, you had it on, that screen and through a computer, so on. I'm sure you have seen this kind of thing.
I have, but I usually defer to the engineers to do that.
You didn't have to do what I did, you could have just had the drawings on one whole screen, that would be larger, and then do your commenting.
Okay, thanks.
You might invite people, if you think that that kind of approach would help everybody, the audience and the committee, you might just invite people to consider using a projector and a computer and so on. I mean, maybe you've had a lot of presentations with computers and projectors, I don't know.
A couple here and there, but that may be something you might want to consider so we could see.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. That's perfect.
They're very nice drawings, they're exceptional. I'm just saying, we could appreciate them more if you had zooming and you didn't have to block things or show separate presentations to the committee and separate to the audience, and you wouldn't have to have a computer.
It'd be more alive, too.
I'll move to continue to the public hearing to October 15th.
That'd be great. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
This is great. Thank you. Great job. We have 5 more minutes left on this tape. Okay, so maybe we can get this next one in real quick. Does someone want to make a motion to open number 6?
So moved.
And so we have...
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. This is amend section 273-194I, TS2 maximum building size, 273-49I residential units in industrial zones. Open and continue to 10-1. Do we have anything on this, or just...
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, Brian. Very nice. All right, this is exciting.
I almost forgot what we were doing at this point, and we're going to need more than 5 minutes, I'm sure.
Well, we'll just switch tapes, but I remember you said this was like a...
Well, let me Eric isn't here any longer, but just to go back, a lot of the dialogue that came out during Eric's discussion didn't focus on the sublot, really. I mean, I'm sure all of you are aware of that, and that was what he really was trying to talk about. We are looking at that lot, the 4.1 acres is what is in question right now. It is a TS2 zone. A lot of discussion has been brought up about a potential tenant, and not try to talk about things, but I will say this, that an arrangement with that potential tenant and the owner of the property has not been finalized, and typically it's not disclosed until there's a contract between them. So that came out in early discussions, and it came out during design review. Not to really hide it, but again, land use shouldn't be based on who the tenant is. It should be looked at from its value. As we were looking at the TS2, the issues that came out dealt with the building, maximum building size. And I don't know if all of you have a current TS2 definition, but it says no building or other structure shall exceed a total floor area of 30,000 square feet, up to 50,000 with special permit in accordance with 273-118. No single related or integrated retail use shall exceed 25,000 feet cumulatively. And we were a little confused in what that meant and what it entailed. The prospective tenant has a building that fits under the 25,000 square foot limit, and there will be some additional outdoor display. And so the question started becoming, is outdoor display part of that cumulatively? Or, I mean, there is, well, that was the really fundamental question. And so based on that and the general feeling that outdoor display should be included in that, the prospective tenant, it exceeds the 25,000 square foot limitation. It is below the 50,000 by special permit, but then the qualifier with no single tenant can be greater than 25,000 feet. And then I was a little confused because there is language about you can't have lot coverage greater than 25,000 feet. And Reggie originally said to me that was building, but oh yeah, that does include if there's outdoor display. So there was ambiguity in how to look at this because the proposed tenant falls below the 25% guideline that's in here as well. So based on the way we are understanding this, we recommended an amendment that would add an additional 15,000 feet to that total line. So I'm assuming you have a copy of that add-on sentence. It would just be an add-on sentence to the portions that I read out loud. In getting to that, I mean, we looked at numerous things. And if you go and just look at other parts of our zoning, for example, down the road when we looked at the old Broadway Mason Supply as a comparable type business, it is in a CD zone. There's no references really to the size of the building, the size of outdoor display or not. But if you look at what was there, the building took up about 2% of the 5-acre lot, and about 98% was used for outdoor displays, which consisted of garden fountains and statues, lots of trees, shrubs, tractors, mulch, stone, sand, all kinds of garden supplies like that. But the physical building was very small. But that was what was stated in the CD zone. Going down the road and looking at a car lot where the Land Rover is and what was Saab, again, it's a different C4W zone, but we don't really get into considering outdoor display, which is the cars that are sitting there. So the buildings in that case took up about 12% of the available acreage, which is about 2.7 acres, and the outdoor display was about 88%. Just as another point of reference, at one point in time when you got off the exit 57 gateway coming into Guilford, there was formerly another type of tractor business there. The old, for those of you that remember when New England Supply was there, you often pulled off and saw several John Deere tractors, plows, blades, buckets, whatever, sitting in the front yard, screened in area in the back with multiple lawn tractors and garden tractors and so on. In that zone, PV2, we have a maximum building size of no more than 30,000 square feet, but in that zone, we had a retail use limitation. So in that zone, we said no single related or integrated retail use shall exceed 20,000 feet cumulatively, except this limitation shall not apply to area devoted to outdoor display and sales of agricultural products. I mean, that's still our current zone, or current regulations. So as we were looking at this particular area in the TS2, knowing we have a prospective tenant that has and needs outdoor display, we went and looked at some of these comparable, or what we thought were other zones, just to come up with a checkpoint. And with that, we recommended adding 15,000 feet of additional space allowed when there is outdoor display type product needed.
I hate to interrupt you, but we have to switch tapes right now. Okay. Actually, Shannon and I real quick want to announce that nothing has transacted since the tape was off. All we did was change tapes, and we're starting right back where we left off, so nothing has happened since then. Brian.
Okay, thank you. Brian Malone, still up here. I actually was finishing the majority of my comments before we had to cut off, but we were asking and recommending for an additional 15,000 feet of outdoor display or storage be added to the TS2 zone. That's what we were asking for to help clarify some of the other, and be a little bit more consistent with some of the other areas that we have in town where similar commercial uses are.
Let me just add one thing, or two things. When this was discussed at the zoning committee, you'll recall, and actually when it was discussed when we were drafting this, I think by the whole commission, we were trying to get an interpretation with regard to whether or not the maximum store size or the maximum single related and integrated retail use limitation included outside display of merchandise at all. So there was considerable ambiguity, and there is considerable ambiguity, I guess, as to whether that's the case. So one interpretation is that under our current regulations, there is no limitation on outside display of merchandise. As long there's the total coverage limitations, there's the impervious surface limitations that apply to all developments, all commercial developments. But one interpretation is that there's no limit at all. So this proposal to allow 15,000 square feet of outside display merchandise resolves any ambiguity. That's all that's allowed. And it also clarifies the fact that it is in excess of the 25,000 square feet of retail store area. So, is that clear?
So you're saying that now, it would, all that would be allowed would be 15,000 square feet outside?
No.
Okay.
Today, well.
Well, no, if we were to approve this.
Yes.
So
the
only
maximum
15,000.
amount, right.
So if you had like a 5,000 square foot facility and you wanted to have 20,000 square feet of outdoor.
No, this says additional store area. So if you had what that means is you could in effect have 40,000 square feet of total combination store area and outside display area.
Okay.
So you could in theory have a 5,000 square foot store and 35,000 square feet of outside display.
Outside display, you can't have a POS there, right?
POS.
Point of sale.
Point of sale.
Cash register.
Cash register,
I
exactly.
think you can.
No, I think you can.
Because then that becomes not display, that becomes.
Well, that's another question. I hadn't really thought about that.
And is this any more limiting than what we currently have?
Well, if you interpret the rules today to mean you can have 25,000 square feet of store area, and there's no limit on how much outside display you can have, that's one possible interpretation of the way the rules read today. Because we don't say anything specifically about outside display. The other thing that we say here is that this is only for products that are typically displayed, stored, and or used outside. So, in other words, you couldn't have a clothing store and put racks of clothing outside. Because they're not.
But that's if we interpreted that the way that you're talking about, but we could interpret it the other way too.
That you only have 25,000 square feet total.
Right, so in that, if we personally interpret it that way, then this is actually a large increase.
This liberalizes it for sure.
Right, right.
Because the prospective tenant that Brian's been talking about is talking about having a building, an enclosed building of, I think it's 18 or 19,000 square feet, and then they want to have an additional 20,000 square feet plus or minus of outside display area, given the type of business that they are, which actually requires a lot of outside display.
Right.
I think when we wrote the regulations initially, the reason that we put those maximum building sizes on all the new regulations was to prohibit or discourage so-called big box stores. And in my opinion, we didn't really think about some types of retail uses that do actually entail a lot of outside display area. The automotive sales is one obvious one. Landscaping and similar businesses that have a lot of product that they display outside. Like Monticello's or like Broadway that Brian talked about. And like this Perspective business that has a lot of materials that are sort of agricultural in nature that they display outside. So this resolves that ambiguity, and it does put a definite limit on the total amount of display and/or store area.
Now, would this change affect any other existing businesses that were limited by, and I'm thinking of the Walmart situation.
This only applies in TS2.
TS2, all right.
It's only TS2, so
right.
It would obviously apply to all the other retail uses that are in the TS2 zone.
Now, potentially, could Walmart say, hey, TS2, how about, whatever this one is, if we liberalize this here?
Sure,
I know that they wanted to have a garden center when they were being, and it would be reasonable to go by extension and say, all right, well, we let it over there, so now, Mr. Walmart, come on down and ask us for this because, rights.
Well, they could certainly ask for it. Anybody.
Well, how could we say no to them if we say yes to this?
Just because we grant this particular application, we're not under any obligation to grant any other application asking for that. That's not a good rationale for, in other words, you can't come in and say, you gave it to them, so you got to give it to me. That doesn't fly.
It's a different area.
Different area, different circumstances, different factors we take into account. And remember, these zoning changes, we also have a lot of discretion, probably even more so than a special permit. So we have a lot of discretion in terms of allowing or not allowing it. But that is not a good reason to come in and say, well, you gave it to this guy, I should get it too.
Yeah, the distinguishing factor in Walmart's case, obviously, is a different geographic area than TS2.
I mean,
maybe you do want to allow.
Well, I'm thinking it would be great to have a garden center.
If they came in and it was reasonable and the area could accommodate it and it could be done safely, then maybe it should be. But just because we granted it here isn't a good reason to say you've got to give it to me over there.
Right, now, I wasn't here for the Walmart deal, but was this the actual thing that limited them to that space and not having?
In case their store is already above the maximum total store size. So that's why they, whenever they want to have a little display out front, they have to get a variance.
Or outdoor
So it's like slightly different circumstance.
Yep. Katie, do we have to reference any of those letters to this application? I'm sorry?
The Farm Bureau one.
We
Farm
read
Bureau.
that in.
To a different.
Do you want me to read it again?
No, you just.
Well, just one quick question. George, there's also the residential units. Are you going to cover that, or
Yeah,
Brian?
that's a separate application.
Okay, it just happens to be included here.
We need to continue this hearing as well to.
Right.
Okay.
In this case, we can continue to October 1st.
I will reference the letter that I read into the record for a separate application from the New Haven County Farm Bureau, Inc.
Good work. Nice job.
Thank you.
Good work. All right.
Well, we do have other support, and maybe it'll be more prevalent at the next hearing we're continuing.
Sure.
But there's definitely interest, and I'm sure there's some opposition, but there's interest as well from numerous fields and businesses and people in Guilford who would like to see this ultimately come together.
Is it your opinion that under the current regulations, it wouldn't be possible to have, just if it were to be Tractor Supply to come in here, to have a Tractor Supply come into that specific spot? Or can the current regulations be interpreted to allow Tractor Supply come in there at any rate? Under what they, how they want to set up their shop? Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. So that came out really poorly.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I was having a breakdown.
No, it's just me. That happens sometimes. So we currently have regulations that don't necessarily limit the amount of outdoor storage or display. So is it your opinion that we don't necessarily need to change these regulations to be compliant with the desires of Tractor Supply.
Well, I'll probably answer it two ways, because, you know, in the TS2, okay, we talk about allowing a 30,000 square foot building up to 50,000 with special permit. So conceptually, in a TS2 zone, we would allow a building of that size and structure. But then we have that next qualifier that says no single unit will be greater than 25. So it's almost, well, maybe not. You know, and I understand that they'd prefer in a 50,000, if we allowed and built a 50,000 square foot building, we'd maybe want 2 or 3 people in it instead of 1. But the fact is, it's a 50,000 square foot maximum that we are allowing. So, I mean, I look at that saying, hey, we will kind of allow it, and this would have covered it without any more language. When we get into this, you know, this cumulatively, I'm not exactly sure what that means and what it doesn't. In other areas, we specifically call out outside storage that we allow or don't allow, and here we didn't. So it was ambiguous to me. And I'm not trying to avoid the question. I think it should have, and frankly, in the time we've been looking at this, the building itself is around 19,000 feet, and we did not really take into consideration the outdoor display. And it was only as we got further into the discussions, we recognized there was going to be some of that, and we said, oh, how does that factor into the end result?
Yeah, my point was just that if we currently have regulations that would allow for Tractor Supply to be comfortably set, you know, why amend our regulations?
I can have that part. I think I don't want to speak for the developer, but I have a pretty good feeling that they would rather know for sure what the rules are than rely on an interpretation.
You might not be here next month.
That's true, very true. That's fair.
And Brian, nobody came up with the interpretation that under the current regs, this is 19,000 square feet of indoor, and therefore they have 6,000 square feet left of outdoor.
Yeah, that's one possible.
That is a way to interpret it.
Yeah,
the other way is to say there is no limitation on
Right.
outdoor.
Right.
See, and there's the problem.
Yes.
If they're going to invest time and money engineering this, getting all the attorneys involved, et cetera, it'd be nice to know what you're allowed to do and then conform an application to that.
I don't think that their plan can survive based on 6,000 square feet of outside display.
Yeah.
And Walter, I mean, the line calls out maximum building size.
Right.
Okay, so we
Right, so
weren't
that
really
doesn't
taking
do
into
it.
consideration the outdoor portion of it. We looked at the 19,000 out of 25 and said, hey, it fits.
Because I thought that Ray had come to a third interpretation, which was 25 and 25.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
I thought.
another way to
So,
interpret
that's
it.
why I
The
was saying
limitation
it's-
already exists at 25, which is
I don't
sort of,
follow that interpretation, but
Well, there's
Was that right?
already a limit at
yeah.
25, but then you can get another 25 to 50 by special permit. So maybe you could have 25 outside and then a 25 building. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can interpret this. I think the best thing to do is to clear up the ambiguity and set the parameters
Yeah.
that we can agree to. And then at least if the developer can live with them, great. If they can't, then they got to look someplace else. Or at least they know what
Yes.
they can get if they come in here.
With the risk of complicating this, I'll mention it anyhow, since we have another hearing to think about this. One other approach that George and I talked about is instead of necessarily giving a hard number, maybe we talk about a percentage of the lot coverage. I mean, we have in question, a 4-acre piece of a parcel.
170,000 square feet.
So, I mean, maybe, and we're shooting from the lip right now, whether it's 10, 20, 30%. But let's go conversely and say if we wanted to try to do the same thing on a 2-acre lot, you know, you'd really have a big thing on a small lot. So if we looked at this and said maybe there's a ratio that we put in play that makes sense, and we say, okay, the building, max building is 25,000.
The thing I worry about though is in a real big lot, this can get out of control in a hurry and you could have, you know, as far as the eye can see, outdoor storage of stuff. So, you know, it will work with maybe a smaller lot, but let's say
All right, good.
that the
38
rest of
lot.
that Sullivan property gets developed as one piece of property, and now, as far as the eye can see, you've got outdoor storage.
You're right.
That's not what we
500,000
want.
square feet of outdoor
Yeah.
storage.
And they can merge these lots back without us really.
So I think maybe a
Thought for
limit.
consideration, we'll go after the 15,000 and stop there.
Good. We have I'm going to ask, we have some people ready to ask questions. Mr. Vincent.
Just have a question. I thought PS2 was supposed to, the intent of it was supposed to be a very mild form, and all of a sudden we're jumping toward a liberal end of it. I just want you all to bear in mind that its intent was to be a very mild form of a PS zone. That's my only comment.
And Ray, you know more about this than I do.
Well, there's a number of permitted uses there of right and by special permit, so I guess it determines what you mean by mild and what you don't, but there's a lot of different uses permitted in the PS2 zone as right, George? I think there's like 20 or
26.
It was like one of the
26 or
most.
something.
Well, there were 26.
Yeah, and then there's additional uses permitted by special permit on top of that, so I'm not sure what you mean
I
by
mean, right
mild.
in that list, though, of course, retail, which we have right up front, but then you look at line 28, retail sales of new and used motor vehicles, including motorcycles, trucks, trailers, or farm equipment, called right out. Garden supply stores, including greenhouses. So, I mean, these are
It
all...
fits in with what's permitted there, as of right.
I'm not arguing, I'm not necessarily for or against it. I'm just, as a TS2 as a whole, I'm assuming it was made to be more palatable to get people on board with it. I'm just, personally, I love Tractor Supply, if that's what goes in. But just want to bear in mind, that's how it was put forward and how it came to be.
Well, you were hearing the word mild a lot on the One West Study
I was
Committee
hearing
for about
mild.
10 months.
Well,
But that's...
But also, it was put forth so that the neighbors wouldn't get nearly as upset if
Right.
a regular commercial zone like CD were to jump in.
And that's why it's so important to be transparent
That-
and crystal
that
clear
is-
by what we say.
Yeah, that is true. It's called a transition zone, which means it's a transition from residential to commercial. And the uses were more limited there than what you can do in a commercial, and certainly in an industrial zone.
Right, but when and sometimes we skirt what they actually mean, and we need to be concise and clear in everything we say, even though it might hurt for people to hear it. It's important.
Right, I mean, but it is called out in the regulations what is and what isn't permitted there for uses.
I would just urge this panel to consider the differences between what could be considered outdoor storage and what could be, or in this case would be, considered display. I think they're two very different things.
Right.
You have a point.
Right, because, potentially it could be row after row after row of tractors.
That's display in my opinion, but it could also be, bales of hay, it could be peat moss, it could be anything.
I wonder, is this this isn't specific to Tractor Supply, this is just a nebulous thing. Like, I was gonna say, well, maybe we could see pictures of what other applications might look like, but that wouldn't be appropriate, because we don't know who this is gonna be.
I don't think sure.
I mean,
if you, again, we go back to the land use. I mean,
I know.
if we don't, it might not be that potential client tomorrow, so we have to try to make the judgments based on how we're looking at this, and not just a specific
Okay,
tenant.
so maybe a good way to look at it is, maybe I'd like to see a picture of a worst-case scenario, so I know what I'm saying yes to. Like, case in point, if it is outside storage, I'm picturing stacks of hay bales and farm implements and some other things that are stored in a way that they're just putting them away for the summer, putting them away for the winter. But if it's a showroom outdoors with tractors, and maybe that's not bad either. That's why I kind of want to see a worst case picture, so I know what it is I'm saying yes to.
Manure piles?
Well, they could potentially be manure
But I mean,
piles.
just, and I guess I hear what you're saying, and then I look at other garden centers.
I know, I'm just thinking
there's
of mulch
piles
pile.
of mulch, there's piles of stone, there's piles of sand. Is that, I'm gonna say offensive or not, you know? I mean, maybe you don't like it and I don't care, or, I mean.
I know.
So it becomes a judgmental call again, is what is pretty and what isn't.
I mean, garden supply stores, including greenhouses, are a permitted use as of right. And if that manure and hay bales go along with garden supply stores.
And if
that
you go
would-
by Ray's interpretation of the 25,000 square foot,
They would be
right now,
permitted.
you could have 25,000 plus the 25,000 indoor.
Right.
Or the unlimited.
Or you can have it
unlimited.
unlimited, if, depending on how you look at it. So you can also say that this is limiting the amount of that stuff that you can have outside.
You also have, keep in mind that all this has to be approved by site plan, so you do have the opportunity to require screening, fencing, buffering, and all kinds of things like that if it's something really unsightly.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things, just as a relative comparison, you know, every day when you go past Pages, everybody loves Pages. There's lawnmowers, there's grills, there's shovels, there's rakes, there's chairs. Is that storage? Is it display? It's storage until somebody buys it. I mean, so even trying to define what is storage and what is display in these types of products is difficult to differentiate.
Right, so maybe George has the answer. Maybe, you know, site plan with screening and maybe turning the building sideways with the lawn in the front or whatever it is when we do the site planning. Maybe that is the solution to this, and not to beat ourselves up too bad right now, beat ourselves up pretty good later. Ms. Brockett?
In favor or are you questions?
Yeah, please, speak.
Kimberly Brockett, 222 Flag Marsh Road. I'm actually wearing two hats. I am representing the Ag Society. Normally, there would be 20 or 30 people with me. However, we have a fair in 36 hours, so I was delegated
You're right. Well, thank you for coming.
here this evening.
Thank you for coming.
We will also be submitting a formal letter to Katie after this meeting. We apologize that it was not here, but again, I'm a little stressed.
I'm on it tomorrow.
This has to get delayed to a second date anyway.
Understood.
All of your people can just swarm in.
And they will.
That would be nice.
But I'll just go on the record as saying, as Brian alluded to, there are a lot of residents of the town of Guilford in support of an agricultural supply store. As of right now, many of us drive an hour, hour and a half to get to similar stores. And Guilford is supposed to be an agricultural community. With the signs at every entrance to the town. These types of stores support not only the farmers, but the tradespeople as well. So we are in support of that. Taking off Ag Society hat, put on my own. I am the owner of a small farm in Guilford. I actually went through statements of the farm retailer I frequent, and have made, in the last 3 years, I've made almost 40 trips to that retailer, each of which was over an hour away. And I won't tell you the dollars that I spent there. I would rather spend them in Guilford.
Yep.
And support a business that is in town.
Is there a second option currently other than the Old Saybrook? This is a
until
little
Old
bit
Say-
beyond our scope.
It is. Up
technically.
until Old Saybrook,
Yeah.
I was going to Griswold and Enfield.
Yeah.
Regularly.
La Quinta.
That's a long run.
Old Saybrook just opened a couple of years ago.
There was one close to Rhode Island, right in Stonington, La Quinta.
It's right up the route too.
Yeah.
However, if you look,
Almost everyone in the state.
if you look at the prospective tenants website and look at the state of Connecticut, on average, I'm going to say they're about 30 miles apart. So I mean,
But,
that's
and there's
just
a
part of
gap here, right? You would say, right now, there's a gap.
Can't sell diesel there.
Because you're
There's not
traveling.
one in New Haven County.
Okay.
Ma'am?
My name is Mary Sullivan, and I live right next door to what is going to be the agricultural farm
Proposed
store.
potential.
And I'm in favor of it.
Good. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Last chance. It's 11:15.
Not last chance, there's another.
Well, no, we're gonna continue. Last chance for tonight,
Tonight.
until we come back and get another bite at the apple.
I'd like
All
to
right.
move to continue to the October 1st meeting, correct? Yes, October 1st meeting.
Second it.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, so can we, I would like to move the next one. We need to get these folks out of here, it's getting late in the evening. And as much as
I don't think there's anybody here to comment on the 249I. It's pretty simple. I could, in one word, I can open the hearing, then you can continue it to the next meeting. That's with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
That's, in our current regulations, in one place we say in industrial zones, you can have one residential unit per lot.
Yep.
And then in another location, we say you're allowed to have one residential unit per acre. So there's an inconsistency there. It needs to be fixed. This proposal would allow one residential unit per acre in industrial zones. And that, keep in mind that the residential units have to be accessory to and part of an industrial building. So you can't do a residential development in an industrial zone that's freestanding.
Excellent.
In either case, so that's this proposal.
All right, so.
I'll move to continue it to the October 1st hearing.
Second.
Meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. I would like to move number 7.
Well, we gotta do it now.
So make a motion.
Move to open the public hearing for item 7.
It's already open.
Yeah, this is the second hearing.
We just want to delay.
You continue that to
Continue
October
to the
1st
next
also?
Yeah, I'll move to continue that.
Because it's 11 o'clock at night and these people need to get out of here.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, we'll be here till 2 o'clock in the morning.
So did you move to continue it to the next meeting?
Yes.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so now we're getting to the regular meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
So moved.
Okay, I'd like to make a change because we need to get some of the folks out of here that have been kind enough to sit through hours and hours of tedious debate. Can we move the,
I'll make a motion to move C. I'll make a motion to amend our regular meetings agenda by moving items C to A and A to C.
right, except I would like to do Mr. Piazza, D. Piazza too, right away, if we can.
Well, I don't know if we can parse out this. I don't think Goose Lane would take.
Yeah, so let's do C1 and then go into A. Is
Yeah,
that-
it will take us. I think C will take.
There's a C2 on the back.
Oh, is there really?
Yep, there's 2 site plans for this evening here.
Okay, yeah, so we could do these in just a couple of minutes. So let's do C. Would you make a
Yes,
motion to do C?
my motion is to do
Who's
C.
seconding that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Goose Lane Storage. Sorry. You're here, you went to DRC?
No, Reggie and I substituted ourselves for DRC. They really didn't, they weren't going to have a meeting, so we didn't feel like we'd want to have a meeting just for that. We did meet with Mr. Carter on the property, and I think we resolved some improvements that he's going to make. And maybe you can outline what those were.
Yeah, I got hit 17 yellow jackets doing it. Just clearing some brush, and painted the sign, that's where I got stung. Basically cleared all the brush, front and back, everything I can touch. There's, I remember on the map, there's a lot of stuff I'm not allowed to go near. And I'm gonna paint the gate.
Can you tell me about the boat? Has the boat been disposed of?
I don't know what, well, I have to move it, but I have no proof of it as to where to move it to. It's my boat.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's a draft.
I'm just gonna move it around the back, if it's pretty.
Okay.
It's not on a trailer, it's a sailboat, so it's on the.
Sailing, okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, what's his name?
I'm sorry?
What's his name?
Dan Carter, Goose Lane. Sorry.
All right.
So I think I think those are improvements that will make a lot of sense. I think our original motion was that our original proposal was that the sailboat and the woodpile be relocated basically to the rear or eliminated within 6 months. That's what we recommended before. I think, I gather you're okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
We also had a height restriction because he wasn't
So it's
concerned about it.
Right, it's gonna be
With
10
the
feet.
Wouldn't
truck
the
storage.
sailboat exceed the 10-foot
Yeah, that's the
height
thing, my
restriction?
sailboat is all
Right.
So you could actually move the sailboat onto your residential lot, and it would be onto your home lot. And
That's
it would
where
be-
it kind of is now.
Yeah, that would be totally
That
okay.
is my front yard. I mean, it's
You have a
south
sep-
of the storage units.
Is the storage property on a separate lot
No,
from the home
it's the
parcel?
same lot.
Oh, it's the same, okay. So
His home is on an I.
you're allowed to have a boat in your yard.
What if your yard is in an
Actually,
I?
I talked to council, and he looked at it and didn't think there was any problem with where it was.
Technically, I think you're right, because it's not, if somebody was renting the property to put that there, that'd be a different story. But the
Did-
fact that it's your boat,
Did Reggie look at where the boat is?
yeah, I think
Wasn't
Dan's
there
plan
issue-
is to sell the boat, so
Yeah.
that may take, a while.
I've got a couple people are looking at it. I was
Yeah.
gonna power wash.
The wood pile is gonna go away, correct?
Okay.
Wasn't the gate to be painted or something?
Yeah, the gate is a little bit, kind of ramshackle, putting it mildly.
Yeah, we just paint it. It's just got a little surface or something.
All right, so why don't we make a motion, and then I'm going to ask if someone wants to speak.
I'll make it. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a site plan revision for Goose Lane Storage 278, Goose Lane Map 75 Lot 2 to allow outdoor storage as shown on site plan, proposed mini storage dated, received August 28th, 2014. This application is approved with the following conditions: that within 6 months of approval, by March 1st, 2015, the sailboat and woodpile would be relocated to an area that meets the 75-foot residential district boundary line setback. George, should I say "or on his property"? Is that to keep it legal, or is it?
Sounds like it's all one piece of property, so I don't really know what.
Is this condition legal?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I don't want to, if it's on its,
Moved out of the setback.
well,
If it's his home lot.
If it's one parcel of land and his home is on that lot.
One part is industrial, one part is residential.
No, it's not all industrial.
Sir-
This isn't a public hearing either.
Sir, yeah, hold on for 1 second. We're in the middle of drafting the motion first. If you're all right with condition 1, which is that within 6 months of approval, by March 1st, the sailboat and woodpile be relocated to an area that meets the 75-foot residential district boundary line
Just
setback,
move it to the back road. Okay. Put the storage there.
Yeah, until you sell.
then we'll keep that
Then, yeah,
condition
we'll just keep the
as
condition.
drafted.
Yeah, that's a legal condition.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with
Right,
that.
it's not.
And then this
That's-
application is approved based upon a finding that with the condition imposed, it meets the requirements of the zoning code.
Second.
Okay, so let's have some discussion. Do any of us want to discuss this right now, or?
Oh, I mean, it seems like this homeowner and business owner in town put through the ringer throughout this process, and, usually with site plans, they are not public, and we were kind enough to allow and invite a discussion at the last hearing about this matter, and it would appear to me, unless I'm mistaken, George, that the homeowner and business owner has attempted to comply with a lot of the concerns of the neighbors.
I believe so.
So I would recommend voting in favor of this.
Okay.
I would like you to amend the motion to include maintaining the gate in good condition.
Well, the only problem, I wouldn't have a problem with that if I saw a way to sort of police it.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
George, is there an appropriate way to draft that condition? Because the owner seems all right with that idea in general, and the neighbors were furious about it.
Yeah, well, just legally, they don't have any say in it.
I mean, first of all, it's vague. I mean,
Right, it's
my
pretty vague.
idea of well-maintained is potentially different than yours. So
Right,
it's a vague
that's true.
standard, and then to try to tell Reggie, go out there and find out
I
if
think it's
it's
a
well-maintained.
good idea, and,
I hear
what
you.
it should be, but, that is all policed by people who go to his business. If he wants to have a successful business, it should look great. If he doesn't want to have a successful business, that's up to him. I'm full all the time. Yeah, well, I'm not, knocking your business or your successfulness, I'm just trying to say that it shouldn't matter. Dig a little paint too. It shouldn't matter necessarily. You can't. Neutral brown color. You're right. You
Town
could.
originally told me to do.
You can paint it whatever, color you'd like. I'm just saying that, those are the restrictions that would be, that would play a role in whether or not your gate is painted.
Has to have that restriction.
No. You're missing what, I agree, I'm agreeing, you're missing what I'm saying, and I might be confusing this up. All I'm saying is that the business aspect is the only thing that should be policing whether or not your gate is painted a certain color. Has nothing to do with our regulations. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there's a motion on the table. It's
Yeah,
been seconded.
If there's someone who wants to speak for a couple of minutes, and then we can call the question.
You don't wanna speak?
Wait a minute, isn't this,
It's not a public hearing, right?
No, it's not a
hearing.
public hearing.
Okay.
I would prefer to take a vote
Why
personally.
don't we just call the question?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So you're good to go. Glad you enjoyed this evening. Thanks for staying. Number 2, Long Hill Park, Long Hill Road, map 85, lot 1, zone R5, site plan application, construction of concrete rebound wall to be used for lacrosse and soccer.
This is the town.
I don't see anyone here to present this application.
Yeah.
Right, this was on the Long Hill Sports Field, and Wetlands went to look at it, and everything was wonderful. The gentleman asked for, John Ireland, asked for where this could be best located, and I think one of the town representatives was there, Wetlands was there, and they picked a spot, and it's agreeable to everyone, and only the edge of it, not the thick wall part, just the edge of it is facing Long Hill Road. So,
Why don't you go
it's
ahead and approve it?
yeah, I think we should
have a
just,
motion.
Well, there are 2 letters. Oh, they don't need to be read in though, right? Because it's in the
No,
site
they
plan.
don't.
Okay.
What is the letter?
Well, one of them's a request for waiver. So that one should
I will read
apply.
in a letter dated September 16th, 2014, to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Dear Chairman Meyer, please waive the fee of $100 for the Guilford Youth Lacrosse Association in association with the building of a rebound wall at Long Hill Park. We are in the process of changing our accounting system. The check for $60 will be forthcoming. Thank you for all your efforts to make and keep Guilford the wonderful town that it is. Sincerely, John Ireland.
that's great to hear. It's wonderful.
I'd like to move this, do we have a,
There's a motion.
Drafted.
Yeah.
You got the move, baby. You got the motion.
somebody got so many motions here.
Richard's got it.
I got it,
We
Tom.
can read.
Richard, go with it, sir.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a site plan revision for Long Hill Park, Long Hill Road, map 85, lot 1, to allow a concrete rebound wall for lacrosse and soccer as shown on application dated 8/29/14. There are no conditions. Oh, that,
Do we have a
Second.
separate?
Well, wait,
wait a minute,
Yeah,
there is,
that's
this application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code.
Do we want to make a separate motion to make it?
Yeah, the waiver needs to be
I think we have to
separate
be
motion.
separate.
So, okay, so let's just vote on this. I don't think there's any real discussion to be had.
Call the question.
Well, was there a map or any kind of a diagram, George?
Yeah, you have a drawing.
It's all in the file, because I don't have it here, but.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is.
This is
All right.
actually on the southern side of that field, right near the wetlands without
Okay.
going too close.
Just want to make sure there was,
So we got to review it already at wetlands.
okay, that's fair enough
All
then.
set?
We don't.
We called the question.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Move the waiver.
Okay, so let's have a motion for a
I'll
move.
move to waive the fee. I don't know.
$100.
$100 fee. Which fee is that for, sir?
100 is the town, the 60 is the state.
Okay,
Right.
so we can't waive the fee, so waive the $100 fee to the town.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so, done with site plan C. Let's go back to deliberations. Mr. DiPiazza is up.
I'll read a motion.
Yeah, please.
Voted the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a coastal site plan application with Joseph D. Piazza, 25 Waterside Drive, map 8, lot 61, as shown on an application dated 8/13/14 and heard at a public hearing on September 17, 2014. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with the coastal management policies of the state of Connecticut.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? We should have some discussion.
Well, it was a great presentation.
Great presentation, wonderful slideshow. I got to really compliment you. Nice job. Look great.
It was interesting that, you know, the date, the homeowner seems to think that it's been there for a much longer time than Reggie.
Right.
Which, I don't know if that even plays
I
a
don't
role.
know, it doesn't really play a role, though.
Well, repair also would be a consideration. If Reggie
Well-
found any new repair on it, then this still applies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it could predate zoning, or it could predate the CAM regulations even, but...
The wooden steps probably
Yeah,
predate zoning.
Probably predated it. But in this case, I mean, it really is simply a replacement for it. We did hear John Goucher.
Right.
I'm convinced that the only reason the applicant did this is because he was unaware of the fact that the regulations applied, and that this wasn't something that was, tried to beat the regulations, so to speak. So I'm okay with going ahead
And there wasn't any
supporting this.
community people,
No, there was no
upset
outbreak.
with it.
And we wouldn't have approved this anyway if we were asked, so I
Right.
see no problem with this whatsoever. Any other discussion?
It looks great.
And yes, to make we have a motion. All right, so let's just call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. DiPiazza, you're all set. Thank you.
You're 11:02.
Okay, we can get through 'em? You feeling strong?
Well, this next one, I do have a question on George, though, before.
Go with it,
The
brother.
piece about the Sullivan property, do we really want to approve this tonight if we're still thinking about what the outside storage is going to be?
It really doesn't have anything to do with
So,
that.
yeah, this is just a subdivision, okay?
Okay.
As long as the application it produces conforming lots,
Yeah.
I mean, we pretty much got it granted.
I mean,
Okay,
if
This
you
is
wanted
not
to
something
table it,
where we have a lot of discretion.
There was some information that you wanted to
No, I just
look at
was,
the
I was
table.
wondering about how if this related in any way to what.
I think what we talked about earlier, wait till the site plan
Well,
comes to get
that's
specific.
probably a lot of the testimony we heard tonight is more appropriate.
Right.
Now, the other thing, remember though, is that a site plan does not necessarily require a public hearing. It is if it's a special permit, but if the applicant doesn't need a special permit for what they want to do, there's not going to be any guarantee that the site plan will go out for public hearing. But what we did here is more to what it's going to be used for as opposed to the subdivision, which
is
is a
really all we're
conforming
gonna-
lot. Yeah,
right,
which
we
is
should
all we got
only
before us
consider.
now,
Okay.
so.
This subdivision didn't require a public hearing either. You
No.
chose to have one.
All right, so
Voted, the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a subdivision application for Sullivan Farm North LLC, 2945 Boston Post Road, map 83, lot 5A, as shown on, in quotes, record subdivision map, parcel B, property of Sullivan Farm North LLC, dated July 15th, 2014, revised to July 23rd, 2014, prepared by Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning and subdivision codes of the town.
Second.
okay, any other discussion?
Pretty straightforward.
It's a conforming lot.
Conforming, meets all the criteria.
It's reasonably large.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Congratulations to Sullivan Farm North. Who's got Sunset Creek?
I got Sunset.
Richard, please go with it.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for an accessory apartment and home office and an accessory structure for Sunset Creek Development, 353 Stepstone Hill Road, map 92, lot 15, as shown on an application dated 8/18/14, and as heard at a public hearing on September 17, 2014. The application is approved with the following conditions: the prior occupancy of the new apartment or office, the septic system servicing the building shall be upgraded to current health code standards, and the building shall be connected to the public water supply. The application is approved based on a finding that it conforms to the zoning code. The special permit is effective September 26, 14, and upon filing with the town clerk, it is recommended that the applicant contact one of the historical societies to see if the building could be moved to one of their properties for long-term preservation.
You should strike that last sentence.
Yes.
So we're striking the last sentence.
And I would second that.
Okay, good. You know, this is one of those situations that we hope for where someone discovers a part of the rich heritage of Guilford and they decide to celebrate it instead of tearing it down. I think that we should see more of these. It would be a wonderful thing. So I have no problem with this whatsoever. All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. DDR.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit and site plan revision for DDR to allow restaurant drive-through service and outdoor seating at 1919 Boston Post Road, map 29, lot 34, 35, 36, 8, what?
Map 79.
Map 79, map 79, lot 34, 35, 36A, as shown on land development plans, Guilford Commons, dated August 22nd, 2014. 11 sheets prepared by BL Companies. This application, we don't have any conditions. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code. The special permit is effective on September 26, 2014, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
Anything else need to be said?
The reality is it's going to increase traffic, and I'm just very confused that the applicant would even represent to us that it wouldn't. But ultimately, it's I think that we don't know the full traffic situation that's going to be produced by DDR. We know what it's like to have the road torn up right now while we're putting up the light, but ultimately we don't know the effect that this is going to have on the residents on this side of town as it's currently approved. We don't know the effect that it's going to have on Route 1 in general as it's currently approved. And I think that it's unwise for us to increase the strain while there's so much uncertainty relating to that.
Well, as I recall, there was already a traffic study done when the application was originally approved.
Correct.
So we do know the effect of the traffic that DDR is going to cause. Now,
We do know what they represent.
Well, we know what the study said, and it wasn't contested. I mean, people had the opportunity to contest that study and put evidence into the record that disputed the findings. To the extent that was done, the majority of the commissioners felt that that was an accurate study because they approved the application by deduction. Now, it is true that we don't know the impact that this restaurant will provide, or will increase it, but we do know that from what the applicant has said tonight, that the configuration of it is not one that's going to be conducive to mass traffic coming in. I'll tell you this, if there's 11 cars in front of me and it takes me 15 minutes to get food, I ain't going there a second time, okay? So I think to some extent, there's going to be some limitation on the amount of traffic that you're going to have coming in here that doesn't, just park, go in and eat. Maybe they come out. So I don't see this as being a major, major contributor to the traffic based on what's already there. And let's face it, there is a lot of traffic there. That's where the exit comes off 95, where you have the town dump there. We have approved a housing development behind there, okay? If it ever gets built, who knows? So it's already a pretty intensive area.
It is already a pretty intensive area.
And it was approved, all those were approved. So I can't see this restaurant increasing it all that much to a point where it's going to be any worse.
See, I don't know that I agree. I think that it's kind of nebulous as to what it's going to be. Yeah, yes, today the representation is that it's not going to be fast foody, and and I believe Attorney Nuff, because I know he's always true to his word. However, we don't know what it's going to be a year from now. We don't know if that business is going to fail, and truthfully, they can go back to whatever traffic study part of the state they go to and say, all right, look, you know what, this is going to be only this many more cars if we do this. I think we're opening the door to the opportunity that it could become something that may not be appropriate for any part of town, or in addition to the current.
It may be, it might be, but
right, and
there's
that's my
evidence
point.
in the record that proves that it's gonna be.
But that's the
I don't
point.
see it.
But the point is that it could be, maybe should be. It's not nailed down, it's not black and white, it's never
going to
be.
be, Rich, because no matter what goes in there, like you even said it, 5 years from now could be something different, 7 years, something different from that. And you know, if they told us, okay, it's going to be a this today, and we approved it based on that, it could change to something else in 5 years that you may not like. So you have to go with that uncertainty. You're going to, I mean, that's part of what this is.
And that uncertainty is what's causing me to hold back.
Well, that's your right to do it.
Being in the retail world, that restaurant isn't going to be the major draw of the plaza, of the complex.
That's true.
And this will only be ancillary traffic, in my opinion.
Did the study that currently exists include drive-through traffic?
It included a restaurant. I don't
Actually
know if it
included more square
drive-
feet.
Yes.
And it was
Because
bigger.
they come back and asked for 10,000 square feet less than the original plan did, that was when the traffic study was done.
For the whole shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10,000 more square feet and no
Less.
drive-through. No, the traffic study had 10,000 more and no drive-through. And now we have
So-
10,000 less and a drive-through.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
so you have to make a judgment call. And, I mean, it did have a restaurant, that, I do
Yes.
remember, not necessarily one with a drive-through, but it did have a restaurant.
George,
think it'd
if
have
we
more.
have if we grant a special permit for this, and let's say that special permit will be with that piece of property in perpetuity. Correct.
That's right. It runs with the land.
Right now, the way our code is set up, we allow for special permits to be applied for in that area, in the zone where the rock pile is. Correct? So we would need, what would we need to show that a drive-through would be inappropriate for that area?
Inappropriate?
Inappropriate, yeah.
Well, the applicant, the burden is on the applicant to show that it would be appropriate. And I don't think they've carried that burden. As you know, right, Ray?
Well, the
burden
applicant is
right?
on the applicant to show that the requirements of the special permit process have been met. Okay, now, we do have discretion, but it's not unlimited. So one of the issues is the impact on traffic, the impact on property values, and the impact on the environment of the neighborhood. Now, this is a separate zone, one piece of property there. The applicant has made representations and explained to you the configuration, the type of restaurant that they're planning. There may not even be a drive-through here, okay, is the other representation they make, but there may be, okay? So I think what the commission has to do is evaluate all that and determine if you think they've made a sufficient showing. Now, they have indicated this is 400 feet plus from any existing residence. So do you think it's going to impact the property values of the residences around there any more than what is already been approved?
Well, that's my question, is that if there's already this huge plaza going in there, how much negative impact I mean, the property values are definitely affected by.
Right,
by the rock pile right now.
and Ms. Brockett's point about the headlights, once leaves are off the trees.
Well, but the way he explained it, the way they're going to be pointing and coming around, they're going to be pointing towards 95.
Right, but at
in
some
that
point,
area.
the headlights are going to sweep past
Well,
where our
that's
house
true, but
is.
they're also going to have a
what?
restaurant there anyways, even without a drive-through. They're already approved.
I think the
for
key
that.
point is they're not
And
going to be,
pull in
they're
there
not going to
anyways
be
to park.
stopped
If they, I mean, we're
in
just
her direction.
talking sort of hypothetical, but if they were to put like a Buffalo Wild Wings in there without a drive-through, okay? I could imagine that being way more annoying to residents than a Panera with a drive-through. So I mean, I think it's sort of a hard.
But this permit is not contingent upon the State Traffic Commission retaining the same limitations that it's got on there right now. Attorney Nuff has represented to us that the State Traffic Commission right now is only treating them a certain way. But the reality is that they could attempt to change that. And
So
they're
how would that
already across from a transfer station at an exit and at an entrance.
And
At a place where a kid was killed in my lifetime, taking a left, coming out of the Land Rover. What was that, Land Rover, right?
Well, at that time, he
It was a,
Yeah, it was
no,
Saab.
it was a Land Rover at that point, already. And it's consistently snarled at that point already under existing conditions when we are not handling DDR, when we're not, even when the transfer station is closed, and even before this new light gets put in.
Well, we already have a traffic light there, right?
Yes.
At the exit from the turnpike, there's a traffic light.
Correct, and they're gonna add another one.
Right, so you've slowed the traffic down, if nothing else, because of the traffic lights, even if there's a lot of traffic.
And if you really want to address the transfer station issues, the issues happen at the transfer station when that gate that's 2 feet from the road is closed and people are pulled off to the side waiting, or they don't realize it's closed and they pull. That's when when that gate is open, there's no problem with it. There's no line back up onto the
Right, and
post
we
road.
can try to blame it on other things, but the
that's the reality
the
of it
current
is.
reality right now is that those kinds of things are happening.
They're
right
happening,
there.
and we need to get
And
the
we're not
transfer
in
station to move
control.
that gate.
Under what conditions, Walter, would you think it would be appropriate to have a drive-through there? Because in my opinion, I don't necessarily see the drive, if what is being represented to us is actually the fact, and they can't go back to the state and then have it changed out for McDonald's or a Wendy's. But in my opinion, putting a Panera or a Chili's in there with a drive-through is not going to increase the traffic that would already be there for the Panera and the Chili's. People aren't going to Panera and Chili's for the drive-through.
Well, that's what they've represented to
Yeah,
us. So, I
and
mean, if you
but that's
believe
my
that,
also, well, that's
But
sort
we
of my
haven't
opinion.
seen actual evidence of that.
Well,
I mean,
what I know about I have been to Panera's and I have
Yeah.
been to Chili's. And,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, and like it just in my experience of those events,
Yeah.
I can't imagine like it was being represented by a lot of people in town saying that there's no way that they're just piling food together and sending it out. That's just not going to happen. What's going to happen is people are going to call ahead and they're going to order their food and then they're going to come by and pick it up. Now, does that mean that there's not going to be a backup 50 cars long? Because I don't know. But I think it's less likely than if there's a Wendy's or McDonald's.
And if you put a Wendy's or a McDonald's on that site and they're going to back up to the post road, they're going to cause that kind of traffic, then they're going to have probably a busier McDonald's than on 95 in Darien, which is the highest volume in the country.
Well, I mean, I can't guarantee that McDonald's or Wendy's wouldn't go there.
Right, you
That's
can't.
one thing that I wouldn't say. But even if we're being represented, that there's no way they would want to, because anyone will chase a dollar. They think they can get it in there and it'll be successful. They'll try to do it. But I don't know what circumstances we allowed as a committee, we allowed drive-throughs. And to me, you're sort of representing that there would be no circumstance that a drive-through would be permitted here. And if that's the case, we really should change our regulations and remove the drive-through aspect of the rock pile.
So that's a zone change that you would be interested in making?
No, I'm just asking you, like, why did we originally, I reviewed the minutes from our meeting where we approved this, and why wasn't, all these issues should have been raised and discussed then, rather than have Attorney Knopf and
Attorney Knopf
DDR
was here also.
Yeah, he was. Waste their time to come out and apply for this drive-through now,
Well, I mean, our time is, all of us spend our time.
No, I understand, Walter, but my opinion is, we approved this, and you're sort of representing now that there's absolutely no circumstance where a drive-through would be reasonable.
Oh, there are circumstances where drive-throughs, I think,
what
are
would-
appropriate in the modern world. I just think that across from the dump,
Well, yeah, but
why
did we approve it?
Because we're about to have 3 traffic lights in a row.
Yeah.
We're about to be, because special permit exists so that we can review things closely when they're before us. So the close review of this produces a set of conditions that are going to be really bad for West End residents on a permanent continuing.
But I think
We have
what
a
you're
West End
saying
committee
is that,
said that it's not.
right. And
That's right.
this is the
That's correct.
SCW zone. There's only one property in it, which is this one. And we did, as a commission, approve the ability to put this in here by special permit. And I believe that was unanimous.
No,
was.
it was
there
not.
one?
I'll tell you one right here.
All right.
Frank voted against it.
All right,
For the reason that I believe that this entire Route 1 should be relooked at.
Yeah, that was a protest vote. It wasn't
But
specific.
the other,
Because I'm 100%
Yeah,
in
he's
support
in
of this,
favor.
but okay.
but in any event, I mean, I see your point that why did we give the applicant false hope to invest the time and money in this when we have, under no circumstances, it sounds like we would approve something that we agreed to open the door through a special permit. So I see where you're coming from.
So,
You go ahead.
can I ask George a question? If a Panera went in there, and in 3 years, their business wasn't working for them, and so they abandoned the building. If there was a new tenant going in there, wouldn't DDR have to come back for permission for the new tenant? Don't we do that?
Not necessarily. Depends, unless there's a site plan change they need to
Only if they needed
make.
to change the physical configuration in any way, the
So,
site plan. The
for
site plan.
example, just as an example, let's say that it is a Panera Bread, they go out of business, and they say, well, we'd like to put a McDonald's in there with 3 drive-throughs. They have to come back here for approval, because that's a
Which
change in
would
the
ha-
site
which
plan.
It wouldn't be
would have to
because-
happen.
It
But if
wouldn't-
they only have one
It wouldn't
drive-through.
have to come back because it was a McDonald's, it would have to come back because they were proposing to
3
add
drive-throughs.
3
Right, so if it was a
drive-throughs.
White Castle with 1 drive-through, then.
If it was
They
a-
They
wouldn't-
wanted
they
to
wouldn't
keep,
have to come
if they
back.
want to keep it just identical, they don't have to come back.
So I've got a question for you. You know,
And
we
we've left
keep on
discretion.
talking about the traffic study, and we assume that the traffic study was done taking into account the current load of traffic. But, we know that we have that 115-unit senior housing complex already approved right behind the dump.
That's included in the traffic.
That was
that included in the traffic
Yeah,
study?
that was
Let
talked
me-
about at the
Let me just
time.
clarify that there was a major traffic study done at the time the original approval was granted, and the DOT has the responsibility to permit that type of development because it's on a state highway. They reviewed the traffic study, they approved the project with the caveat that numerous traffic improvements, quote-unquote, be made, including the signal, including the widening, all the construction that you see going on now, improvements at Flag Marsh Road. The town actually asked them to do that. Widening at the off-ramp from 57. All of that was part of the original approval. When DDR came back with the new plan this year, they submitted the new plans to the DOT and asked them if any, and this was all testimony at the site plan review, asked them if anything, if the changes would require or trigger any changes in their permit or any changes in the work that they required conditional thereto, and DOT said no. The original approval and all the conditions stood. The traffic generation would be the same. And the traffic studies, by their nature and by definition, include all the adjoining developments and any approved developments. So in fact, it did include the Waldo Russo development across the street. In fact, Waldo Russo's, because their entrance road lines up with this, they're also required to help pay for the traffic.
Right, and there was a
is my understanding.
coordination between the entrances to the two.
Coordination, I know there's
to minimize
coordination
that.
going on right now as to how much Waldo's going to have to pay towards these improvements. So all that was reviewed, the new site plan was reviewed by DOT, and all of the permit conditions were found to be applicable now, just like they were in 2007. What I heard Mr. Neff say tonight was that the DOT, because of the nature of this particular application, did not or would not require any additional conditions on the traffic, because the traffic generation is seen to be the same, even though there's a drive-through proposed, because it's a drive-through associated with this casual dining type of restaurant, not a fast food restaurant. So if a fast food restaurant were to want to go in there, the DOT would require new studies to show how much additional traffic that might generate. They may still say, well, all the improvements that were originally approved were okay, it'll still handle it. Or they may require additional traffic improvements. That's the scenario that's likely to happen. But according to Mr. Neff, DOT is currently saying that this type of drive-through would not create any conditions that would trigger any additional review and or improvements on the state highway.
So for us to limit this to DDR and to keep it from running with the land, the motion would have to be amended to include.
I don't think you can
I
limit,
don't think
I don't think you
ownership.
can limit to a specific owner.
We talked about that for the.
You could say.
ZBA does
fast
that.
food restaurant, special permit does not apply to fast food restaurants.
Say that.
And then fight it out later on
What fast food
if
restaurant is.
there, what is a
Find
fast
out what
food
that is.
Again, you're
restaurant, if
asking
that ever comes up.
for trouble, because what is a fast food restaurant, to me, is different than you.
Well,
mean-
Attorney Nuff
Well, we
did give
could
a
define it.
recommendation saying that, give a percentage on profits
So we can sort of do something.
The only problem is, what are we gonna do, audit the books? And what if they say?
No, I don't think that
just,
that's
you
a
know.
fair thing to do, but I think that.
Well, that's what I mean, is-
I think that for like, we can assume that a McDonald's, I don't think that, I think it'd be a quick search. McDonald's percentage of profit from drive-through, Wendy's percentage of profit from drive-through. I don't think
that would
that's.
be a one-step process.
Yeah, I don't-
Maybe it would, maybe it would.
I don't
I
think
don't
that-
know.
Quick service restaurant in general, drive-through generates 70%.
Yeah, so Frank, can you might know more about this. Would you say that there are, only an X amount of restaurants that are 70%? Or would you say that most of the drive-through restaurants are 70%?
Most of the, almost, I'd say at least, the majority would definitely be 70%. Just by having a drive-through in a restaurant, you could increase your business by 40% by remodeling with the drive-through. Drive-throughs are, yeah.
George, I had a question. How, you can maybe touch a little bit on how often, or at the TS2 meetings, right? How much?
West meetings?
No, the TS2 back when, or the table, what were the table 5, I'm sorry, the table 5 meetings, okay? How often did they discuss this drive-through in this location?
It was discussed quite a bit, actually. Those meetings were going on when the rock pile was moribund, and there was quite a bit of, there was concern in that we needed to do something to sort of help it get going again. And one thought was, well, let's allow drive-throughs by special permit in this location. I don't ever remember hearing any conversation along the lines that suggested that it was drive-throughs only for quote-unquote casual restaurants.
Well,
I think people
if
clearly envisioned when they said drive-throughs that it could be a McDonald's or a
If I
Wendy's.
recall, I think Taco Bell was actually brought up
Taco
by.
Bell, there's been a continuing joke in Guilford for years, like, why can't we get a Taco Bell?
But that's beside the point. And then we
Right,
did
that's why it
discuss
came
about
up.
it. And then today I spoke with Attorney Nuff, and he said that he was there when we talked about it too, and he was interested in that playing a role in DDR coming back to the table in Guilford.
I mean, we're making an assumption here in your discussions that in fact having a McDonald's or Wendy's is a bad thing up there.
Right.
Is it?
Well, it might be bad for traffic, but not necessarily for the wasteline.
Yeah, I mean, it might be, not healthy food, I can tell you that.
Wow, that's up for dispute.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot.
That's a planning and zoning issue.
You ought to call the question.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot. I think there's a motion on the table at this point. I would really love to call for, or the chairman, excuse me.
I just didn't know whether, I don't mean to belabor this position, I don't know whether anyone at this table thinks it's necessary to add a percentage of gross sales to the.
I think it's not a measure that you can actually, it's not gonna work.
That's fine, you're right. I just thought because go ahead.
I also don't think you can project in the future how things might change.
I was just trying to make a concession with the attorney, because Attorney Nuff did recommend it, but, all right.
I think we have really beaten this one to death, and we're kind of at the point where traffic doesn't matter that much in terms of increase. The likelihood that it's going to be fast food is not that great based on the configuration and the fact that it's kind of removed away from the road. I think that, while I'm sensitive to headlights shining when there's no leaves on the trees, they're going to have some evergreens, beautiful evergreen trees. They're going to shield all that. Unfortunately, this is why we're here. We kind of have to make these tough decisions. This is one of them. I think we beat it to death, so why don't we just have a vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Say opposed. Okay, so it's 6-1. Walter is certainly entitled to his opinion. I hope he's not right, but we'll see.
I hope so too.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Council. All right. I don't even remember anymore what 273-2 is. I'm so beat to death.
Well, I think that wasn't that.
Didn't we put that off? That was the adult.
Yeah. Okay. Site plans are done. Applications, they're all
We're gonna be done.
That's a nice thing.
Oh my God.
Walter.
I've got
10 minutes?
Yeah.
you want to
We'll be
We should be finished here within 10 minutes.
Well, before we do that, oh,
Here's a
no.
letter from Vic.
Yeah, I gotta read the letter from Vic, right?
Please.
Dear Chairman Meyer, I'm requesting the P&Z Commission to read into the record my report on definitions regarding bulk propane storage and put it on the agenda for discussion. I've mentioned this to you several times at different meetings and sent copies to all members of P&Z Commission. I believe the P&Z could solve the whole bulk propane issue without the need for endless committees studying ways of limiting propane storage. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Yours truly, Victor Anatra. Katie, please forward to Rich Meyer and all commission members, including town staff. And that was dated September 4th, 2014.
And that's great. You know, I do want to compliment Mr. Anatra. He is involved and he is constantly there. And I think our town would be even better if we had more people who are as involved as he. So, Victor, I imagine you're going to be watching this, so thank you so much for sending your letters. Please keep it up. Approval of bills. We have no bills.
I think he's asking to put it on the agenda so we could discuss it.
Oh, okay. So
Well, he's not here, so why don't we do that the next meeting?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Actually, make it, I think the next meeting is going to be jammed up also. I'm not going to be here.
Oh, no, you have to be here.
No,
we canceled your meeting.
No, no.
You're going to be here.
No.
All right.
It's death or you.
Yeah, please. All right, so here we go. Approval of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
I did, and I move with adoption of the minutes.
And I'll second it.
All those in favor?
I'll abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, can I have a motion for the...
Move we pay the bills.
No, it's a... We'll pass that. Okay, so...
Mr. Chairman, with no business before the commission, I move we adjourn at this time.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.